So this morning, the day after the RNC, everybody in Milwaukee is getting ready to fly home, only to find out that they can't because all the airlines are shut down. Credit cards aren't working. I was trying to buy a cup of coffee, and the lady told me I had to give her cash. Fortunately, I always have some cash on me, but Crowdstrike is reportedly responsible for the largest IT infrastructure outage in history, disabling a massive portion of the global economy. It's not just in the United States. There are reports of people in Europe trying to fly out. Their planes ain't going anywhere. We're talking about how something like that happens. It's also disrupted early voting in Arizona, which is freaking everybody out. We'll talk about that. And then, this is kind of crazy. The story around the assassination attempt on Trump, we keep getting new information that makes... There's no official story, so I don't even know what to tell you. But now we're learning that they allowed the shooter to fly a drone over the rally. So I'm at a loss for words, okay? I did a lot of early research and work with aerial drones in the United States. I know about the legalities and the limitations. In fact, I worked with government agencies on literally what some of the regulations should be. The idea that you could fly a drone at a presidential rally is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Wall Street Journal is now reporting that. None of it makes sense, my friends, but we're going to talk about it. So before we get started, head over to castbrew.com and buy coffee. Everybody's raving about Ian's graphene dream. I don't know why. Apparently they're saying it's absolutely amazing, and that's just bad news for Alex Stein's primetime grind, 2 times caffeine. But of course, we have Appalachian Nights. Rise with Roberto Jr. Everybody's favorite is, of course, Appalachian Nights. Head over to castbrew.com. Buy our coffee to support the show. It's a product we sell to you, so you get something out of it. But we're using this to try and build culture. We're working on our coffee shop, which has been like jammed up forever. But also head over to timcast.com. Click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly with an awesome members-only in-person Q&A from our live show last night. It's up on the front page. Check it out. It was great fun. We are still here in Milwaukee, but this will be our last Wisconsin show. When you become a member, you get access to the Discord server where you can hang out with like-minded individuals or even just people to argue with. And you can submit questions to join our members-only show Monday through Thursday. What? Monday through Thursday, 10 p.m. Join the show. Smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Bricksuit.
How are you doing, Tim? Oh, let me move the mic. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Right. And also, you were there in the front row on this day.
That's correct, yeah, at Butler. Just by chance, really.
And so you witness all of it. It's going to be, it's really great to have you, man. We can hear about, we'll talk about the news and hear your perspective.
Okay.
Who are you? What do you do?
Well, my name's Blake, but I go by Bricksuit when I'm doing stuff online. I generally support the president and America First politicians, and just kind of, it really started as just something fun to do, but it's grown into something more than that. And usually that's pretty much it.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. Jeremy's back.
Glad to be back. Glad to be here. Thanks for moving your entire operation to Wisconsin just to accommodate my fear of travel. So glad to be here tonight. Thanks for having me.
And of course, Luke is here as well.
Luke Rudowski, youtube.com/wearechanged. Today, no tape over the t-shirt because it's not really a controversial one, but a good one that reads, "Trust God, not government." Get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Thank you.
And I'm Hannah Claire Brimlaw. I'm the writer for SCNR.com. I'm happy to be here with Jeremy on our last night in Wisconsin. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Let's get started.
This is the big news from today. Of course, there's a ton of big news, but this one really is affecting your life. Microsoft CrowdStrike issue causes largest IT outage in history. Live updates say businesses worldwide grappled with an ongoing major IT outage Friday as financial services and doctors' offices were disrupted while some TV broadcasters went offline. Wow. Banks were shut down. Air travel has been hit particularly hard with planes grounded, services delayed, airports issuing advice to passengers. The outage came as cybersecurity giant CrowdStrike experienced a major disruption early Friday following an issue with a recent tech update. CEO George Kurtz has since said the company is actively working with customers impacted by a defect found in a single content update for Windows hosts, stressing that Mac and Linux hosts are not affected. This is not a security incident or a cyber attack. The issue has been identified, isolated, and a fix has been deployed. One expert suggested it may be the largest IT outage in history, and I just would like to stress, if a single update could disrupt like a large portion of the global economy, you've basically just told all of our enemies the easiest way to, shut down the global economy. Some are actually suggesting there's a conspiracy theory of there's a conspiracy afoot that it actually was a cyber attack against the U.S. They're trying to cover it up because they don't want people to panic. However, what I've seen from some IT channels on X is that the update accidentally had code pointing to what do they call it? Like a null identifier. Did you see that too, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Like basically it was a dead link. The memory said pull from this place, and this place was nothing. So it just bricks out.
Like entry-level stuff.
Yeah, don't they usually test updates before sending them out to the entire freaking world?
Not on Fridays.
Automatically I was like, wait, this story kind of doesn't add up here. The first thing that I thought about was Cyber Polygon. Maybe this is a test run, but who knows? Maybe it could be an accident. Maybe it could be a coincidence, but Crowdstrike is kind of a political group. They are kind of more aligned with the Democrats. They blamed Russia on hacking the DNC. They also have a major DEI office. So this is not a bipartisan organization. This is a political organization that also very conveniently wiped off a lot of favorable news coverage for Donald Trump as well. So again, I don't know what happened, but I hope we find out.
I'd like to point out that bricking out is not always a bad thing.
Yeah, the crazy thing about this is that they're saying when all of these computers went down, it's a single update that knocks all the computers offline, and then they have to manually reboot each machine to make it work. This is a huge and glaring cybersecurity issue coming from a company that's supposed to be helping them. But wasn't CrowdStrike involved in like the DNC stuff? Like they claimed that the
Russians were responsible for the DNC hack.
Yeah, that's probably not true. But I love how you've got these, let's just call them friends of the deep state, who will come out and say whatever the deep state wants to hear. And they can tell that to the press. And then you wonder why it is your credit cards don't work. One of the theories going on right now, and I don't really care to believe this stuff, but at least it makes for entertaining content, I guess, is that they're flexing their muscles as a threat to Donald Trump.
I mean, the timing is coincidental, right? It's the day after he accepts the Republican nomination to be their presidential candidate, and he delivers the longest recorded speech in televised history. I mean, you know, I am our resident technophobe. I barely know how to turn on my phone. Jeremy was just trying to fix my battery on my computer. But I will say, you know, the longer Americans go through, they struggle to get into their financial institutions. The flights are all in disarray. It heightens the sense of fear that I think a lot of people have, that the country really is on the brink of instability. And especially after basically a week of very positive messages coming from the Republican campaign, it is hard not to believe that someone out there wants people to go back to feeling not hopeful, but scared.
Yeah, I wonder. Donald Trump generated a ton of news. He gave a powerful speech. Everybody was praising it. And then in the morning, instead of the news cycle being Donald Trump's speech, it's planes are down and your credit cards don't work.
Right.
Is that what you were pointing out, Luke?
People were freaking out in the morning. They were like, and it didn't just start in this morning. It happened last night. A lot of people were having difficulties flying back with transportation, getting into their banks, being able to travel, being able to get emergency services. The Coast Guard had to manually have call-ins because their entire system went down. So it wouldn't surprise me if there were some lives cost because of this coincidence.
Oh, dude, and how many people get paid on Fridays?
They're saying
right?
hospitals, for instance.
Exactly.
Were shut down. They couldn't get people in because their computers weren't working.
Exactly.
There was
Absolutely
a
crazy.
big outage of the emergency services in Massachusetts like about a month ago at this point. And it was during that huge heat wave that went through a lot of the country, but definitely affected the Northeast. And it was dangerous, right? Because you have extreme heat. And in New England, not everyone has air conditioning. So you have potentially older at-risk people not being able to have intervention. It is interesting to me that about a month later, we're seeing another big outage on an even larger scale.
Yeah, even this morning, if you didn't have cash, you couldn't buy breakfast.
You still can't.
We are.
Yeah, you still can't. It's still down.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are in the chat, you can comment. If credit cards are still down, yeah, they're down for us. Cash is king. It's the only way to get it done. And I don't know. I'm not too mad about it because I don't like, having to do everything through these digital systems, and cash, I think, is a good thing they're trying to get rid of. Yeah. But even our team's basically asking how this is possible. We have one super chat that I want to shout out right away. Patrick C says he was an IT sysadmin for 20 years. There's no way this was negligence because CrowdStrike is a huge company. They have policies in place. Even when we do updates on like our rinky-dink little app, you can't roll out a bad patch. It's just we have a test environment.
Yeah,
and then you roll out there, and then when everything works, we then send it to the main environment. I don't understand how this could happen.
It's 2024. We can't believe in coincidences. And today should be a major wake-up call to everyone to just how fragile our society is and just how dangerous the cashless society is that many globalists, many government officials want to ram through. And they already have rammed it through in other places like Australia, where cash purchases over a certain amount are illegal. And they are criminalizing individuality, privacy, sovereignty, freedom at the fullest extent. And the buck stops with you. Literally, cash is king. And I think today we realized that we got to have more of it, since, of course, the banks don't even have that much cash on hand.
Remember the change? Remember how hard it was to get change, like just small, when, post lockdowns?
Oh, yeah.
I don't believe that, I'm sure there were quote unquote reasons for that.
Pre-lockdowns, there was a whole war on cash saying it spreads the disease, it spreads the sickness. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me?
Do you know how many hundreds of, I'm sure it's out there, like in credit card fees were lost today? Like astronomical amount of money that was lost today. That's why it's represented in the stock market. A lot of this comes from, our government allowing the same three companies to run literally everything. And it's just another perfect example of, a system that favors these virtual monopolies and then gives them all the power. And then, really every major bank and every major this and that should probably not be on the same thing.
Oh, let's bring let's make the conspiracies worse. Look at this from the New York Post. Crowdstrike global tech outage snarls early voting in Arizona with GOP convention travelers delayed. So all of the GOP reps and delegates trying to fly out are jammed up, severely limiting their capabilities. This will have a noticeable effect on Republicans' ability to have meetings, to make phone calls, to fundraise for at least a couple days, because if they miss their flight today, then they're going to be delayed till tomorrow. Some people probably said, okay, we'll just come back tomorrow. But more importantly, voting in Arizona was actually upset by this. And so some people have been spreading this rumor that Dominion voting machines got shut down. That is not correct. It is something to do with the printers that print out the polls they need for voting weren't working. So it actually disrupted voting. Look,
is it going to disrupt fundraising too? I mean, if the RNC, Republicans are going to be making calls after President Trump's acceptance speech. Yeah, that's
people this morning who should have landed a couple hours. They wake up at 9, they get to the airport at, they get ready to go to the airport. They're there by noon. Their flight's in a little bit. They're landing in the afternoon. They're on the phone after that. It's Friday.
Right.
Now they're not. Now they're in the airport calling the airline, trying to figure out why they can't fly. And all of these Republicans who just heard Trump speak, that's the key moment for Trump to be like, give me money.
Well, not just those people flying home to make those calls, but if calls go through, are people able to make donations if they are reached? I mean,
because the credit card
is the actual engine that accepts the donation down. So even if you have volunteers back home in Arizona, can they even process the donations?
That's interesting.
As long as if they were using CrowdStrike, then they can't. Everybody else seemed to have been fine. X was fine. Everybody was posting on X.
Mm-hmm.
See, but
Linux servers were all fine. Anybody who was on Linux, my website was fine.
It's kind of wild that we rely so heavily on singular companies for this stuff, and that they could automatically update in such a way that it just basically breaks everything. There was apparently like some post, I don't know if that was you mentioning it, Jeremy, where a guy was like, I could fix that computer right now, but the airline lady won't let me do it.
Yeah. That was online. She just wouldn't let him because the point that you made too, it's like manual updates. This isn't like a just roll it back thing. People had to, actually come into the office and reboot these machines. And a lot of people didn't have like admin access. So a lot of employees who have corporate computers, they didn't actually have credential levels or whatever on their laptops to deploy the fix themselves. So people that are all over the place, working remotely, traveling, they had basically bricked PCs. And maybe we now know who, perhaps you were at the center of Brick Soup Guy.
Do you have an alibi right now?
Were you uploading an update last night?
I'm going to take the fifth on that.
Smart.
Yeah. Let's neither confirm nor deny.
Let's jump to this story too, where things get crazy. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the Trump gunman flew a drone over the rally site hours before the attempted assassination. I'm going to pause right now and just say that's impossible. That is impossible. I don't know. Modern drones won't even fly in secure zones. I don't know how this is possible. If you buy a modern consumer-grade drone and you turn it on, it will tell you before you can fly it, you have to download the map which tells you where you can and cannot fly. It tracks no-fly zones, FAA rules and regulations. After you download it, if you were anywhere near anything like this, it says cannot take off. Now, it's possible he had a really old drone from 10 years ago or something that he was flying, but this makes literally no sense outside of the technological hurdles. They allowed a drone to fly overhead, and they didn't do anything about it. Okay, that's it. I don't see how anyone at any point could say anything other than inside job. Hands down, look, in 2011 at Occupy, I'm flying one of the first commercial grade drones, and we hacked it to live broadcast using the software development kit. We pulled the data from the device while it's in the air and sent it to a laptop computer, and then captured the video feed and broadcast it on the internet. For this, we ended up getting a bunch of attention. I ended up actually consulting with the university and the government on drone regulations and rules. And this is impossible. They let someone fly a drone. Let me tell you why it's impossible. The reason why we have the restrictions on drones, look at what's going on in Ukraine. They strap a very small explosive to a drone. The idea that they would allow a drone to fly anywhere near a presidential rally without putting in any kind of override is impossible. They let this happen. I don't get it.
Yeah, a 20-year-old shouldn't outsmart the national security state, but that's the official story that we're kind of being told to by the corporate media, that he somehow was able to get his hands on transmitters, also have explosives, also be able to wipe his phone. Is this guy like a tech genius? Is he the smartest man that's able to beat out the NSA spying on every little single thing you do? I don't think so.
Don't forget he can be on a sloped roof too.
Yes,
I mean he's able to do that.
That's a lot of skills.
He's got anti-gravity boots. Yeah.
This means that for we're going to have to go and look at all of the other Trump rallies to determine when they're allowing flights over the president, which is nuts. But this implies that at a deeper federal level, it wasn't just the Secret Service who said, "Whoops, there's no guy on that roof." It is the FAA allowing drones to fly over it. I'm gonna pause and say this must be an old school drone pre FAA lockdowns. So I mean, it's nuts to me because look, even 10 years ago, they updated the drones. I'm talking 2014 and 15. All the drones got major updates that they could not fly because they were given FAA digital maps internally, which connected to their GPS, which would block them from flying in certain areas.
They also transmit their position too.
Yes,
a lot of the modern ones.
So the FAA did not put up a no-fly zone to restrict drone flight. The Secret Service and local law enforcement allowed a guy to launch a drone. They say the use of the drone was just one way in which authorities have said crooks planned his attack. How is this possible?
Could it have been the day before?
It says hours before.
Yeah.
Tim, can I ask a question on this? Because I don't know.
This is right before the event.
I don't know anything about drones at all, really, because I don't have one. But could he have pre-programmed it to launch from wherever I am, fly in a certain direction, a certain amount of space, and then come back? Like the drone was never really referencing that.
That's not only if it's an older drone from like 2013, or maybe he hacked it, I guess. And that's a level of sophistication that I think I would be surprised by. Look.
He's an expert bomb maker.
If you right,
he's the most skilled
I mean, what is this? A 20-year-old with explosive remote triggers, and drones that seemingly bypass. And no, I mean, some people have chatted saying that it's the FAA had no fly zone over there, and I'm like, what? How? Look. Go to Best Buy, buy a consumer-grade drone. It will not fly unless you connect it to the internet for an update first, so it can track FAA no-fly zones.
The Secret Service denied a FOIA request from America First Legal today. They're asking for information like the identities of the Secret Service agents, all kinds of details about what's going on. And the Secret Service basically said, like, there's no urgency. You don't need this information. And I can understand where, kind of to be expected, right? They're a federal agency that's in the middle of something. Yeah. They're still getting their story together. On the other hand, I think it is amazing that we are still almost a week out from this, and really the government has not been able to even present something that they could like, not even a story that we all would believe is a lie or a cover-up. They're saying nothing, and they're denying all requests for information.
It's possible, as people are chatting, he built his own drone. Absolutely. And so the narrative is then the dude built explosives with remote triggers and he built his own drone. He flew his own custom built drone at a presidential rally in front of law enforcement and no one did anything. Dude, I'm sorry. If a custom built drone is flying around a presidential rally, you'd think they'd stop it. They'd say, we're going to figure out the source of this. Mr. President, do not go out on stage. We had a drone flying overhead and we can't identify it where it's coming from. I'm sorry, dude. This is nuts. This is just, they're not getting this one through on the story of some dumb 20-year-old figured this one out.
Yeah.
There's no way some dumb 20-year-old or some crazy kid who apparently, what was he in a BlackRock commercial? Is that true?
That is true.
They filmed at his high school, right?
He was like a extra kind of. He was in the background.
And that's an aside. That's an aside.
Yeah.
But some 20-year-old kid with remote triggers, how do you make those? Where'd you get them from?
Well, there's the story too about the second cell phone they found that has like, a handful of contacts, and now the FBI or whoever it's going through and trying to make contact with each one of those people. I mean, the initial story was this kid barely existed, right? He has no social media history. He has no friends and he never talked about anything and we don't know anything about him. And slowly we actually are getting details. He does clearly has someone in his phone book. He was on that social media site saying something. I saw this report the other day that he told his boss that he needed the next day off because he needed July 13th off because he had something to do. I mean, people know this person, and this idea that he was able to do all of these things as like a lone wolf becomes increasingly more sketchy the longer the DHS and Secret Service keep it a mystery.
Yeah. As his parents were calling the police hours beforehand, saying that they were concerned about the whereabouts and what their son is doing.
Yeah.
It was at like 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but there was many reports. There was many different things that they missed clearly here. And it really makes you kind of wonder, with the FBI going after pro-lifers, going after PTA meetings, where their priorities are at. Because if someone's buying transmitters, if someone's buying specific drone tech that allows you to evade a lot of the laws, rules, and regulations, especially with just how weaponized they have become in Ukraine, these set off certain red flags. These set off certain alarms that, especially if someone is troubled, if someone is a loner, if someone is being bullied, automatically, if you're the national security state, you should have a sort of an algorithm saying, yeah, the likelihood of this guy, especially with his mental health issues, maybe he was even on SSRIs. You could even check the prescription data on that automatically. Top of the list. Let's just keep an eye on him. But they don't do that. They do a dragnet surveillance state that, of course, spies on your private wiener pictures.
Remember, schools have software in place that does this. That's how they caught the kid in Wisconsin, based on his search history, and then it set off all red flags. He ended up having a manifesto and all this kind of stuff. And like you said, if you buy certain things from Amazon, they may be innocuous, but you combine them, there is a notice that gets sent out. I mean, look at all the times they've basically set up honeypots for those guys that are buying those credit card things, those punch out things, and then all of a sudden everyone gets arrested. They're watching all that stuff.
Let's play Occam's razor, right? In the absence of evidence, the solution that makes the least amount of assumptions tends to be correct. What if I were to say that a 20-year-old kid who donated Democrat, was a registered Republican, had a grudge against Donald Trump, bypassed a Secret Service, local law enforcement, flew a drone, had explosives and remote detonators, and was able to successfully get off a few shots against President Trump, striking him in the ear? There are so many holes in that statement. In order to get to that point, you have to ask 1,000,001 questions. To be literal, you need to ask a question for every single instance, and each of those questions asks another 10. We start with, how did he bring a rangefinder and use it at a presidential rally spotted by law enforcement without any questioning? Okay, we'll start there. Law enforcement made all of them, every single one who saw him, because it was more than one, made a mistake. Okay, next up. An hour later, he was spotted again utilizing this rangefinder. He flew a drone. All of the Secret Service and local law enforcement forgot their policy on drone usage at presidential events at that moment. Instantly, they had amnesia. I'm sorry, there's too many questions that can't be answered. The simple solution no longer becomes a crazed 20-year-old with a custom drone with GPS spoofing to bypass FAA restrictions, or the FAA didn't put up a no-fly zone. He was able to fly this hours in advance. He had explosives and remote triggers. The Secret Service didn't secure the building, didn't put up a block to break line of sight. The police encountered him numerous times and let him go. The simple solution right now is law enforcement was aware of his presence and allowed him to do it. That makes the least amount of assumptions in this regard. And then when you ask about the technology he utilized to get there, it's almost like, I'm sorry, if you're going to ask how a 20-year-old had a drone that could bypass these fly restrictions, or how he had explosive the remote triggers, there's too many assumptions to be made there. The simple solution is they were given to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Blake, I wonder, since you were there at the rally, if you can tell us what police law enforcement presence looked like that day. I mean, was it, you've been to a lot of rallies. Was it the same as usual? Did it seem less? I mean, what's the insider's take?
From what I saw, it all seemed pretty much according to all the other rallies I've been. So I actually bypassed the turnoff a little bit, went through, tried to get in the easiest way. That was blocked off. And so I had to backtrack a little bit. It was tough to get to the parking, but I did not really spend much time outside the venue. Now, I approached the venue from the south. That's where the parking was. They had a lot of vendors. It was very typical. I did notice, because this was at a small airfield adjacent to it. And I did notice a few buildings like hangars and stuff like that. But I didn't feel like it was unsafe. When you went through the scanning, the magnetometers at the beginning, the only thing that was different is that the Secret Service was doing all of the searching. Now, normally at these rallies is that the TSA will do the initial screening of your bag, and then the Secret Service will man the magnetometers and then do the wanding. But at this one, the Secret Service was also doing the searching of the bag, and I thought it was better because they actually searched my boots, which I've never had done at a rally before. So in my mind, the initial screening getting into the venue was even better than ever.
It was more thorough.
Absolutely, yeah. So, and I don't know if that was just a change, but then when I flew out of Pittsburgh the next day, 2.5 hour wait at the TSA screening. So Pittsburgh Airport, closest one where you'd have a lot of TSA agents. I think they've got something going on there. That might be why there were no TSA agents at this rally. I have no real reason for that. So then once I'm in the venue and I got there, as soon as they opened it up to the public, everything that I saw was basically according to plan. I didn't see anything that was really deficient compared to other rallies. Not at all.
That's interesting. It is interesting to me that you're saying Secret Service was doing a job they don't normally do. Again, I would have a similar instinct to you. This makes it safer. Mm-hmm. This means it's more thorough. I'm also thinking about, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has now been granted Secret Service protection, but we're within that 120-day window where every major political candidate is supposed to have Secret Service protection. Now, of course, it's unusual because we have President Trump, who already had it, and Biden, who's, of course, already protected by the Secret Service. But in some ways, I wonder if it could have, I think if I were in your position, I would have written it off as like, oh, we're just getting closer to the election. They're just being more cautious.
Yeah, it was just something I noticed, and I didn't assign any reason to it. But like honestly, they checked to make sure there was nothing in my boots, and that's never happened before.
Was there anything off? Was there anything else strange about that event or that day to you?
Nothing at all.
Wow,
nothing at all. I mean, and this is the standard type of setup that they've had for outdoor rallies. So even the setup was very similar. You've got the standard stage. The ramp goes up to, it's either on the left or right. It's never straight to the bleachers. You've got the bleachers in the back, which is the backdrop where all the people that you see when you're looking at those standard, media television feeds that are shooting directly at the president, showing people in the background. Then you had the flanking bleachers on either side with the jumbotrons above it. So maybe for an outdoor rally, to have the two jumbotrons, they were both pretty large, so it seemed like maybe that was a little bit different. Sometimes they only have one.
But they were putting up the illegal immigration chart.
Right, exactly.
Maybe it was just a different speech.
Correct.
Also, what you're saying means, I'm just thinking the Secret Service would have searched Crooks's bag.
Crooks was not inside the venue.
He wasn't inside, okay.
Crooks is outside the venue. So this is something that came from completely outside the venue. He was not inside.
It never made sense.
Wait. He did get searched. They found the rangefinder and reported it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he had been admitted to the rally.
They called him a suspicious individual.
But he was
the Secret Service called him over and said, we got to keep an eye on him.
He could have gone in, gone back out. I mean, we don't totally know what his path was around, because in the reality, I don't really understand why the second they were like, this guy seems to be raising red flags, they didn't have a plainclothes officer following him. I mean, if they did, that person clearly. Well,
I wasn't aware that he was searched. So you see, he was searched because
yes,
honestly,
they found it and let him in with it.
Well, why would he go into the venue? He wasn't in the venue. He wasn't in the secured perimeter of the inner venue.
He was in the secure venue, and he like locked eyes with the snipers. And then he left the secure area, and that's when the
went to
Secret
his
Service
car
lost
and
control.
then
Why would you even need a rangefinder? Why wouldn't you just pull up Google Earth and do it that way? I mean, does he really need to have like a range accurate to 10 yards for anything?
Well, if
shooting.
He's reporting for
if-
someone
No,
else.
you don't need that.
if
It's not a golf
they
shot.
if they knew he was
6
going to be
iron
there,
versus 7.
if they knew he was going to be there, law enforcement knew he was going to be there, and law enforcement was helping him do this, then they'd give him the best tools possible to do whatever it is he was going to do.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't they just tell him what the range was?
I suppose if they said we're going to put a mark on the roof and you can utilize that mark, here's what your range is going to be. Maybe, yeah.
Maybe he had to say. Maybe he didn't know for sure which spot he was going to be from.
Or yeah, he didn't know exactly where on the roof he would be. I have no idea. All I know is the idea that a 20-year-old flew a drone hours in advance, was spotted by law enforcement numerous times, was identified as a threat by Secret Service. They still allowed Trump to come out. That the Secret Service didn't secure the building. That Secret Service then lied and said that law enforcement was supposed to do it. Law enforcement then denied that. Secret Service says, well, it's because the roof was sloped. Makes no sense. Multiple local police and Secret Service were aware of him. He was a threat. And they allowed Trump to go out on stage. None of it makes sense.
Yeah,
There's only one explanation. They knew, I mean, let's just as simple as possible. They stood down. That's it. They stood down.
Somebody said, "Leave this kid alone." Like,
Perhaps.
let him operate, because you would think if first of all, it's bananas to me that you'd see. Oh, right, they made you check your boots. I was going to ask, did your boots set off the alarm?
No, I didn't.
Because they didn't make us check shoes here.
No,
Yeah.
I just want to push back on that a little bit. In aviation accidents, there's a theory called the Swiss cheese theory of how accidents happen. And it's when a number of different factors need to align to allow something to occur. Basically, there's built-in safety factors, but if something happens here that allows something to happen here, and they all line up perfectly, then a tragedy can happen. At this point, I feel that's what we're looking at. Now, I think we're looking at humans are fallible, mistakes were made, and in addition, I believe there could be structural failures in the way that messages to the police get to the Secret Service. Is there a delay there? Because I understand that the Secret Service is going to have its own internal comms, and they're not going to share They're not going to share that with local police. So they've got to have somebody in the middle, man in the middle, who takes the local police reports and gives it out to the Secret Service. What is the delay of that process?
Maybe that delay is too long. Secret Service knew 10 minutes before Trump went out there was a threat identified.
Okay.
The normal procedure is to keep Trump in the holding room, which is what they have. And this is Dan Bongino, who worked Secret Service. This is his assessment. 2 minutes before shots were fired, people were screaming, "He's got a gun! He's got a gun!" And they knew.
But those were people outside the venue.
No, the sniper team was looking directly at him and allowed him to take the shots. Yes, they allowed him to take the shots against.
Not one of them said, "Get Trump off the stage."
Yes,
that's it.
That's all you
single
needed
sentence.
to do. They allowed him to go back up.
There's no simple solution there.
Yeah. No, you can't have wishful thinking here.
Well,
you can't give the government the benefit of the doubt.
I did see a report that there was originally supposed to be snipers from the local police on that roof.
And they've denied that and said that was a lie, and that local police was only for traffic control. And when has the Secret Service ever given up the principal vantage point to non-Secret Service? When the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, and they had in their documents that use of lethal force was authorized and a contingency plan, the explanation was that Secret Service, the conflict there was Secret Service controls firearms in most areas when they're present, restricting other law enforcement agencies from brandishing arms, because if a shot is fired, they need to know who it was coming from, and they need that communication specifically within their branch or their division. In this instance, the idea then that Secret Service would say, there's a roof with direct line of sight to the president. What's normal protocol? Again, this is Dan Bongino, not me. Bongino says, if you can't secure the location, you break line of sight. He went on to explain how, in one instance, they had a vantage point they couldn't secure, so he said, buy fake snow and spray out the windows. That will turn any shot fired from this location into a random shot. Still bad, but better than a direct line of sight. In this instance, Secret Service did not secure a building with and if you look at the security perimeter, people are making the joke, they call it the security Pac-Man perimeter, because it cuts out this one building, which makes no sense. So the police's own staging area, that's where they were staging. They encounter a guy numerous hours in advance. So I'm sorry, if you expect to believe that 3 hours in advance, he was flying a drone. He was spotted by law enforcement with a rangefinder. He was identified as suspicious an hour in advance. 26 minutes prior, he was identified by local law enforcement and Secret Service. 10 minutes beforehand, they upgraded him to a threat. Still allowed him to come out. 2 minutes before the shot was fired, 2 minutes and 1 second, people are screaming he's got a gun at cops. He's on the roof. He's got a gun. In what reality? They never broke line of sight. They did not secure the rooftop. They claimed local. How could you argue that all of these things are accidents?
That's what the whole Swiss cheese theory is about. A series of unrelated, low probability events that somehow align to allow something to happen. Now, I'm not saying that it can't be.
When you hear hooves, you don't think zebras, you think horses.
What I'm saying is I'm not saying it can't be that. I'm just saying, to me, at this point, the most likely explanation is human failure.
And that is called, you are hearing you're hearing hooves and you're calling zebras.
Well, hopefully the comms will get out. Hopefully we'll get the Freedom of Information Act. Do you think they'll release their comms? Because I would like to hear that.
I don't think they'll release the Secret Service comms, because remember, the Secret Service, they're not going to give us anything in a investigation that's going to compromise the way that they do their protection. Yeah. And I don't think that they should. So we have to realize beforehand that we're not going to get all the facts. We're only going to get the facts that don't expose the methods that they use for protection.
But do you trust the government to investigate itself?
I don't trust the government to investigate itself. But not all aspects of it. But at the same time, I recognize that there's just no realistic way that I can expect that we're going to get all. I just hope we get them sooner than 75 years with Kennedy.
Let's make sure we include the contemporary context outside of the event and the political landscape, and that is, why did Tucker Carlson? I know we can say Alex Jones predicted an assassination attempt, but a lot of people don't like Alex Jones. No, Tucker Carlson. Well, a lot of people don't like him, but he's in a different area. Why did both of these men predict there would be an assassination attempt on Donald Trump? Well, it's because all of the things that have been lining up politically, attempts to put him in prison were failing, attempts to destroy his businesses were failing. And what did we see just before on July 13th? Well, unfortunately for Trump's political enemies who use fake laws and fake statutes that don't exist in any codified statute to try and put him in prison. This is one of the first times. There's been a few times in U.S. history, I would say at the federal level, probably happens a lot at the local level because of corruption, where a government has declared a person guilty of a crime without due process. It happens, let me rephrase this, at a high level. I'm sure it happens at the local level all the time. Someone gets thrown in jail for no reason. Donald Trump was convicted of a crime that was beyond the statute of limitations because the court told the jury Trump was guilty of another crime, which he's never been tried for.
And they didn't specify what it was.
And if you agree that there was a crime, even though you don't have to agree on which crime, then he's guilty of this crime beyond the statute of limitations. This was an attempt to put Trump in prison on July 11th. Everybody expected something big to come with the Supreme Court immunity ruling. Most analysts said they're going to rule he does have immunity on for official duties, and the question of January 6th will be kicked back to the lower courts. It has not been answered. What no one expected, however, was that Roberts and the justices who ruled in Trump's favor also added official acts cannot be used as evidence of wrongdoing as well. That caught everybody off guard. Yeah. All of a sudden, Trump's team files an immediate appeal on the hush money case, saying the evidence they used took place during Trump's presidency and contains his official duties. The sentencing is postponed.
They're going to win that one.
Donald Trump was supposed to be sentenced on July 11th, 2 days before the assassination attempt. Because of a surprise in the Supreme Court ruling, he was now free to attend the RNC and name his VP pick. 2 days before, the stars aligned in every imaginable way, nailing Tucker Carlson's prediction. Now, if you want to play this game where it's like Tucker Carlson is a madman who for no reason was screaming into the wind that someone was going to try and take the life of Donald Trump, sure. The reality is Tucker Carlson analyzing the political landscape, understanding history, understanding the motives, the motivations, as well as the actions, the unprecedented actions that have been taken against Donald Trump, would likely lead to a scenario where someone would make a move on his life. He was attacked mercilessly by the corporate press for making such a claim. when it happens, I don't think it's fair to say Tucker was completely wrong about everything he said. Every attempt they've made to destroy the life of Donald Trump and his family it all stopped that day. And it just happens to be that a random 20-year-old walked through a loaf of Swiss cheese in every imaginable hole to get on a rooftop unsecured that the Secret Service lied about, flying a drone. Look, Occam's razor, the simple solution. They have waged every possible attack against Donald Trump. And by they, I mean powerful corporate interests or special interests. I don't know exactly who. But there have been political interests trying to destroy the life of Donald Trump. We all suggested they would never stop.
I completely agree with that. You're 100% correct.
How could all of that lead up to this point and then go, lucky 20-year-old who was crazy?
It is fascinating that, I don't think anyone really believes the idea that Thomas Crooks acted alone. It just seems like this is something that was more complicated than his skills that we know about right now seem to indicate. But either it was, if you believe this was a larger conspiracy, it's either conducted within the federal government or it's conducted by, I would argue the alternative would be progressive groups in the country that are trying to, or who are incited to fear, I would argue, by President Biden's rhetoric, because he constantly references political violence. This was sort of his prediction forever. I mean, what's really fascinating, and you were kind of alluding to this too, is like, we actually can't pull Secret Service. Like, it is this one organization that has to just continue on. I mean, even every moment after Trump was continuing to be protected by the Secret Service, we talked about the fact that Director Cheadle was at the RNC. And in large part, that's because this is like a huge event that a lot of her agency is staffing. And in a different year at a different time, we probably wouldn't have even known she was there. I think a lot of people wouldn't even know her name. But now we have to ask ourselves, is this the agency that is responsible? Is it human failure? Is there a conspiracy? Is this a progressive group that somehow has influence? I think that's the biggest issue here, which is that the American people don't know, and they are just trusting that eventually it'll get resolved, when really we see this happen all the time. We don't get answers, and it gets shoved under the rug. Now, the problem for the Biden administration is that it's looking very likely that Trump is going to be elected. And I don't think anyone, once Trump is in the White House, is going to let this investigation fall by the wayside.
He's going to unseal everything. Could you imagine? I mean, it's not even like his buddy. It's him. Like, they took a shot at him. If I were him, I'm obviously... but I would spend all 4 years trying to get to the bottom of it. Yep. It would be like a running thing the entire time while I'm there. It would be the number one most important thing. So I don't know.
Tucker made a great point. He said this may be one of the crimes that actually is solved because of all of the, I'm adding this, all of the egocentric individuals in Congress who think they will be president. If there is no answer to this, it may be them one day at a podium with a bullet whizzing past their head.
Yeah, the JFK assassination was a big message to all the Americans that were paying attention to what's really going on here. To Tim's point, the character assassination didn't work. The legal lawfare didn't work. So what makes you think, when they took so many extraordinary measures to stop Donald Trump, that they wouldn't take the ultimate step and try to take his life? That's kind of my question to you guys.
They're prosecuting currently right now Trump's lawyers. They haven't stopped.
No.
You know, Jenna Ellis lost her mind crying on camera, apologizing for the work she did as a lawyer. And my understanding, I could be wrong about this, but isn't she getting prosecuted again in Wisconsin?
Is it Wisconsin or is it Arizona?
I think it's Wisconsin.
Okay.
Wisconsin was the new one where the state said we're bringing new charges, and so I'll pull this one up in a second to make sure I'm getting it right.
Yeah, and John Eastman lost his license for just giving legal counsel to the president.
It's crazy. It's also interesting to me that that Josh Hawley, I think, is the one who said we've had whistleblowers come forward from the Secret Service, from DHS, talking about the staffing issue. So to your human failure, I think there are a lot of factors at play, and I think human error is one of them. Because I think that the agents who protect Donald Trump are pretty devoted to him, it seems like.
Lots of people
let's just talk about something practical. How tall is Donald Trump?
6'3"-ish.
What use is a 5'4" Secret Service agent in protecting Donald Trump? And I'm not saying, I'm just, maybe that's not the right person to have to screen out view of the president.
Right?
I mean,
she was wide.
I mean,
Lucas.
Okay, all right. I see what you're saying there, but yeah.
But no, listen.
That one, just to be fair, too, she was technically not on his Secret Service detail. If we're talking about the same woman, she apparently just the one that's getting crushed right now in the media.
Right, but for not being able to holster a weapon. She was not. Yeah, there was a woman, though. There was another woman. There was one agent. And I want to say this, all right?
Women can be tall.
From my standpoint, 10 yards away, when I looked at the podium after the first set of shots rang out, all the Secret Service members that I saw, I thought were acting as quickly as possible without any regard for their safety, doing exactly what they were trained to do. Now, can you expect perfection in that moment, even though they drill for it constantly? No, but those guys were on it. They were, you can see from the video, I don't think there's anything deficient in any of the behavior.
Except for the fact that they knew there was a threat identified and they let Trump leave the holding area?
I am talking.
They put Trump on stage. They let Trump, during an active situation, address the crowd and stand up during an active shooter.
How did his shot get off?
So Tim, what I'm saying is the Secret Service agents that I saw who are right in the box there, right by the stage, those are the people I saw. I can't believe that they are all. Someone's telling them what to do. They're not responsible for threat assessment. And I'm not a Secret Service agent, and I don't know, but my assumption is that their primary responsibility is protecting the president, or their protectee in the case of an attack, and scanning the crowd. Because look, I know those guys.
When the four sniper teams that were on the roof spotted the guy with the gun before a shot was fired, why didn't they say secure the president?
But that is not the people that I saw. I
get that, but that doesn't mean anything.
Well, this is why
I just want to say the people that I saw, I felt they acted as quickly as they could, and they did not. The people who are on the stage around the president, they were not deficient. I did not see.
They were absolutely deficient.
Absolutely deficient.
Unquestionably, they couldn't even cover Trump's body because the women were too small, and that's not even an indictment of their abilities. They assigned to Donald Trump individual human beings who are not large enough to provide him body cover. So again,
but they did try. That person, but
they were deficient. Yes,
well, that is poor planning. I did allude to that.
I think the other part is the sniper teams, right? So, like, we have the agents who are on the ground. Lauren Boebert said, the women there, or at least one of them, wasn't originally signed to this. Yeah. I know Eric Trump has said he has worked with her. And I think you're right. Like, people who rush the stage and who put themselves in the line of fire, like, that is commendable. And I do believe that those agents probably don't have the same information that someone who is like supposed to be in analyzing the crowd does. But with the sniper teams, I guess this all comes down for me, like, what is the structure of the Secret Service? Because there is Trump's detail that, goes everywhere with him. And then there are extra forces that are sent in to different events based on where they are, right? So the sniper teams, I assume they don't necessarily all go to the same rallies. I assume that there are different people who are assigned at different times. Like, the communication breakdown within the Secret Service seems to be one of the big things that we'll probably never know about. And I can understand why the Secret Service will claim, we can't tell you what we do. We can't tell you our protocols
because
we're currently protecting people.
And correction, Wisconsin did not charge Jenna Ellis. It's Jim Trupis and Kenneth Chaseborough who are charged June 4th with forgery. So even if you plead, these people were pleading guilty in other states.
Pled guilty in Georgia.
Right. They're not going to stop coming out. You plead guilty, now every state's going to open the door, open up against you. We're at a point in American history, call it whatever you want, where if you're a lawyer who is providing your legal services, which is an individual's constitutional right, you are now a criminal. We are looking at, the documents case got thrown out because they improperly appointed a private citizen to go after Donald Trump. They didn't have authority to do that. The sexual assault charges against Donald Trump could only have been brought after a special law was passed to reopen 30-year-old statute of limitations. The civil fraud charge had a victim who claimed not only were they not victims, Donald Trump never defrauded them, and they wished to do business with him in the future. They still convicted Trump, found him liable, I should say, not convicted. And then you have the hush money case where it was a misdemeanor beyond its statute of limitations that they upgraded to a felony, claiming that Trump committed a secondary crime, but they never, through due process, proved that Donald Trump committed any secondary crime, yet they still convicted him of it. All of these things are dramatically unprecedented. And
I totally agree with you on all of that. You're 100% right.
And then you think after Trump beat them all, they said, that's it, guys. Trump has won. Time to pack it in. And then after all of that, a 20-year-old who hated Donald Trump got lucky walking through this Swiss cheese of failures to take a shot at the president.
Yeah, that is what I think, yes.
I can get you a good deal on the Brooklyn Bridge if you're interested.
I'm just telling you, to me, that's the...
So why'd they stop? Why did they stop after everything? There's no. You've got feds on record saying
I don't think they've stopped.
Yeah,
right, but Bricksuit thinks so. They've got feds on record saying they're going to flee the country if Trump wins. So these people in federal. Let me ask you a few questions. I asked this a couple nights ago. First, I'll start. Do you think Trump derangement syndrome is real?
Yes, I do.
Do you think...
In some individuals, yes.
Certainly. It exists and some people have it. Do you think that some of these people...
Some of those people are on MSNBC, too.
Do you think some of these people want Trump to die?
Absolutely.
Is it possible that any of these people have jobs in federal government?
Statistically, yes.
So the probability actually is fairly strong, especially considering we know that federal law enforcement agents have already given statements to the press that they will flee the country, or they fear they must if Trump wins. Is it possible then that someone working in federal law enforcement who feels they have to flee the country is terrified to the point where they would assist in some kind of action against Donald Trump in this regard, especially considering they raided his home? I mean, these unprecedented things.
Again, statistically, yes, but
more statistically, yes, than a 20-year-old bypassed all of the security for hours and flew a drone over the president.
My feeling remains that it would take more than one person to create all of the openings that happened at the rally.
Why?
And, well, you'd have to have the staffing issues. I'm just no. Again,
how many law enforcement identified the suspect?
So here I am, like. I'm talking about my assessment, I just want to be clear that I have no background in this. But I would assume that there isn't one person in charge of assigning the police, of reporting the calls from the police to the Secret Service Department. I would assume that
it would take more than one person.
I'm assuming there's not one point of failure, so there have to be multiple points of failure.
So how many police officers identified the suspect as a threat before the shots were fired?
I don't know.
I think right now with the reporting of it's 4 or 5. Is that more than one person?
But they acted upon it.
No, they didn't. They acted upon it in the minimum fashion of saying, "Hey, there's a weird guy," and then doing nothing. Not one Secret Service agent they had 4 teams. It's been reported 4 sniper teams for the Secret Service saw the guy. Not one of them said, "Pull Trump." That's multiple people who are standing by and doing nothing. By all means, if you want to make the argument that law enforcement are a bunch of drones who can't take any actions without a central authority figure, then the argument would be, why was there no central command to instruct upon learning that there was a threat? More importantly, 10 minutes before Trump got on stage, Secret Service has a holding zone for him. Why, knowing Secret Service reported a threat, did they allow him to walk out? More than one Secret Service agent would have had to understood what was going on. It's possible that there's
and when you ask me the question about it, is it possible that there's somebody in the government who has those feelings who would act upon them? And I say yes, but I believe there's more. I would believe that there has to be more than one person. So when you're talking about low probabilities times 2 times 3 people, you end up with an even lower possibility.
That's your argument. But I think you're wrong.
But that's
you're saying it's a Swiss cheese of all of these lucky instances that happened by chance that allowed him to get through. I think that's exponential failure that makes no sense. I think that instead
the government is absolutely capable of exponential failure.
And this is why I cite Occam's razor. You're deciding that it's more likely that someone would win the lottery than they would find a $5 bill on the ground. I'd make the argument that it's more likely you find the $5 bill on the ground because it happens every day, probably tens of thousands of times a day in this country, whereas we go weeks or months or half a year without anyone winning the lottery.
It's more likely you'll find the $5 bill in Ukraine.
That's true too. Yeah. In this regard, I say simple solution, the one that makes the least amount of assumptions, is that I am not going to speculate that this kid won the lottery that day. I'm going to say, we know for a fact he flew a drone over a rally, which is insane. That right off the bat has my head spinning. Because I've done work with drones. I have consulted the government. I don't understand. We have Ukrainians using drones to drop bombs on Russians. How could someone launch a drone at a Trump rally without them being like, whoa, 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 and freaking out? It's insane to me. And so if you want to make the argument, when the news first broke, we were like, how could this have happened? And there was an unguarded rooftop. Now we're like, how is that roof unguarded? But we're well past that. Now they identified the shooter well in advance. They saw him with a rangefinder, highly suspect. They upgraded him to a threat, still allowed Trump on stage. 2 minutes before, they identified him with a rifle on a rooftop, law enforcement did, and not a single person did anything to protect the president. I'm sorry, you'd have to think the moon was made of cheese to believe those were accidents.
I don't know. I've seen TSA work. They're pretty incompetent. I'm kind of with you on the government is not great.
And what Viva called this fractal wrongness. You are once again making the argument that the highly improbable lottery winning happened instead of individuals let it happen.
I'm actually not making what I think the problem is, like, we're all going to speculate all day long and we're all going to want to know. But the reality is, like, We have very little information. The information about the drone is coming from the Wall Street Journal. Like, nothing is actually coming from the government, and nothing is coming from, in a consistent rate. This is a very strange situation. I'm open to all kinds of possibilities.
There's no official story,
wrong.
But you don't give the government.
problem.
You don't give the government the benefit of the doubt.
But no. But there's no official story.
They also don't give Antifa the benefit of the doubt. Right? Like, there's so many things.
There is no official law enforcement story.
Well, let's do a hypothetical here, okay? One of the root problems is that nobody is going to trust any set of facts. Hypothetically, if we found out everything that actually happened and it was the 100% incontrovertible truth and could be presented to the public, wide segments of the public would still disbelieve it because of their lack of trust in government. So even with all the facts being actually correct, they will be I'm just saying a hypothetical.
I know, but
a hypothetical.
The government doesn't have anything to do with the set of facts.
So what I'm saying is, if you've got, if the facts involve the government, there will be people. It doesn't matter what they are. If you told them exactly what happened, there would be people who disbelieve it.
It just so the issue at hand is, what are the source of the facts, and what is the evidence to back up those statements?
And people will still disbelieve it, even if given the evidence and still coming from the government.
Yeah, no.
People will still
I got to pause right there. The government as a source of information is immaterial to what we're talking about. We don't just say the government said it, therefore it's true.
But that's hard, though, right? Because, I don't know who the Wall Street Journal is citing, right?
And I trust the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times more than I trust the government.
What if they're citing someone from the government? Like, this is like how deep the low trust society can go. We don't know where our information is coming from. We don't know, if it's a local law enforcement. We know that they have pushed back against the Secret Service. Like, I think you're right. This one of the biggest challenges we have in America is how low trust we are, and this situation is only exacerbating.
Law enforcement is the one who is the source for the Wall Street Journal that they allowed this to happen.
But you remember, like, Cheadle threw local law enforcement under the bus. And I have a little bit more sympathy for the local law enforcement, who the federal government is trying to be like, you guys were in charge of that thing and it's not our fault, when they're like, no, we're not in charge of this. There's so much conflicting information.
One more point on this, because we're going to segue into the same story, but with an update, or in a similar vein. I want to stress, we do not have an official assessment yet. Within days of 9/11, on that day, on 9/11, they said it was Osama bin Laden.
They knew.
They were saying it on the news. Yeah.
On the news right away. We had an official story as to what happened and how it happened. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this seems to be the tendency for big stories. We get information. We are now going on a week with no official story. They've not told us how it happened, the motivation, where the kid came from, how we got the weapons, how we got the explosives. There is no official story. The public is left to just make guesses.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's been nearly 7 days.
Don't they know where he got the rifle? I mean,
His dad.
Right,
Yeah.
so they know that.
But there's no official narrative like at this. So I'll put it this way. They've not come out with a kid who was radicalized in the mountains of Afghanistan, went to an airport, walked onto the plane using box cutters, told the passengers, here's what we're going to do, and then flew the plane. They're saying, we just found out he flew a drone. Mm-hmm. It's a week on, and now they're reporting he also flew a drone. We're getting bits and pieces. We don't know when he showed up. We don't know how long he was there. We don't know. There's no official through line from the government and law enforcement to say, at 11:43 p.m., he arrived with in a Toyota Corolla and parked in the east parking lot. Upon none of that, we have no official story yet. It's strange. It doesn't mean much, but all we have then is the public to collect the bits and pieces of information that's coming out and ask questions about how this could be possible. But I want to jump to this story. Daily Mail reports MSNBC host Joy Reid should be fired for her Trump assassination conspiracy theory, furious Americans say. I don't know if she should be fired. I think MSNBC should be sued for $3 trillion, or GDP of France.
Yes.
And the family of Corey Comprator, Donald Trump, and the other two victims should be entitled to $3 trillion, which of course may be unreasonable. So we can settle with $1.5 billion from MSNBC and Joy Reid personally.
I mean, that's the precedent, right? I mean, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. And I feel like Joy Reid has less hair every time I see her. Now she's just given up and shaved it. But the, I think...
She really? No, she's got hair there. It's just hard to see because it's
blown out the lighting.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the Black Superman shirt too. Anyway, she's growing increasingly unhinged. She's one of those people that Tim mentioned earlier is definitely bummed he missed. Like she is like,
gross.
Yeah, she's like at home crying, like upset, thinking that her dream, like, and then she's going and making these unhinged videos.
She's saying he wasn't even shot, implying that
conspiracy theory.
that Trump, they're saying it was a hoax.
Do you remember that clip we watched earlier in the week where she was saying for some reason he was allowed to stay on stage and take that photo? Like, she just hates this moment. Part of it is they really hate Donald Trump, and anything that could possibly be good for him, surviving an assassination attempt, rallying a crowd in support, having an iconic photo, like they just can't stand it. So.
Having a competent 15-year-old granddaughter who's able to express herself.
They went after her
on the
too.
stage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So I mean,
that was sick.
you're right. They can't handle anything good about this man. They always have to demonize him.
That girl's going to be a big star one day too. You can just tell. She's
Well,
going to be great.
I thought that the RNC, first day aside, I thought the RNC was actually a big testament to family. I thought we saw that with the Trumps and the Vances and a couple different people. Had, I can't remember her name, but the mom who came up and talked about her son who died of a fentanyl overdose.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a really strong remembrance of how sacred and how important the family is throughout this, and it makes me think in contrast of so many liberal progressive icons who are sort of like alone, childless. They hate when other people are happy, and in some ways, I feel like Joy Reid. And I don't watch a lot of her content. I watch MSNBC semi-regularly.
you love her.
I do watch MSNBC
Oh, see,
regularly.
you flipped.
But part of it
So
is
you're
like
Joy Reid
you
fan
want
is
to
what
know
you're
what
saying.
You got to
they're
get your
saying.
content somewhere.
Yeah, and like with Joy Reid, everyone around her probably cheers her on when she says something more and more extreme about Donald Trump.
But this person is influential. You just said that she hates Donald Trump. There's people within government that listen to her, that essentially are preached to her, believe what she believes in. The government has been pretty ruthless against Donald Trump, and I kind of want to bring this back. What makes you think that they somehow will stop at a certain level in order to, of course, not try to stop Donald Trump? What do you think? Why do you think is the barrier that's holding them back from committing this ultimate action that they've been kind of leading up to themselves? Like, what's the barrier there that's making you believe that at this time they stop being ruthless, they stop being evil? At this time, they stopped making these aggressive steps against Donald Trump?
Well, my personal belief would be like, if I thought that was going to be happening, there's no point in going on in like orderly discourse within society. You've got to make some assumptions. And one of the fundamental assumptions you've got to make is that there is still rule of law by and large in America. And even though President Trump, I believe, has been charged unfairly.
How many times has he been indicted?
I said that right there. Yeah. Even though he's been charged unfairly, that's from a different aspect. I mean, you can do all your scheming and all your things about, we're going to pass this legislation, we're going to pass this, we're going to go at him with lawfare.
And try to keep him off the ballot.
Right,
and that was
exactly.
Thing.
But when you go into the realm of we're going to do physical acts of overt violence, that's a whole nother level, because it's no way is it even defensible from a legal standpoint. You can't do that and get away with it. So you've got to at least believe that much of America is left and worth fighting for, because if you don't, you're already living in anarchy. And we're not.
Do you remember what happened during Black Lives Matter?
We are in an anarcho-tyranny, 100%.
Well,
what about the Summer of Love? What about all the people that died? 36 people died during the Black Lives Matter protests that were engineered by the corporate media. They take lives very easily.
If you're
They're taking lives in Ukraine right now. They took lives in Iraq. They took lives in Syria. They took lives in Libya. They openly, do take lives very easily.
Luke, if you're talking about the ability of corporate media, by and large, to set a narrative by framing certain things in a certain way to demonize people, I 100% agree with you. But I don't think that means that is not the same as taking direct action. That's priming the pump and hoping somebody pops off. That's not the same as planning.
The FBI has admitted that on tape, like James O'Keefe got him to they basically admitted, like, oh, sometimes we make a little social media post and we give them a little bump, is what that guy happily told whoever he was trying to hook up with that night. I think it's a tough spot. Like, I don't want you to be like the guy who's here to like officially fight against the, I think that like, I think it's respectable to stay away from taking the black pill, because the alternative is really sad. I still believe now, like, even I'm trying to be like, I really wish, like, I really want more information. Yeah. I really want, like, I do believe that there is a chance, even if it's super small, that the Swiss cheese theory is true, but we don't.
It ignores contemporary context around the actions they've taken against Donald Trump already.
True, but 0.00001 is still a chance.
And then if it's 0.01 in the other direction, then why settle for the more extreme and unlikely scenario?
Hope.
I would, in my estimation, I flip those odds. I think the conspiracy theory is the 0.00001 and the Swiss cheese is the 0.01. I think that's more logical to me.
You think it's more likely?
We're looking at different sides of the same razor.
You think it's more likely that Secret Service identified a guy 3 hours prior? He was flying a drone around. That's law enforcement reporting. That he was identified as suspicious with a rangefinder. He was spotted 26 minutes, 3 hours before, an hour before, 26 minutes before, 10 minutes before he was upgraded to a threat. Not one law enforcement thought to hold Trump. Unprecedented. They have a holding zone for this. So let's talk about, let's count the amount of coincidences. Let's do, they identified him and said nothing. 3 hours. He flew a drone. They said nothing. Now that one's crazy. An hour out, nothing. 26 minutes out, nothing. 10 minutes out, nothing.
When did they discover that he flew the drone?
I don't know.
Well, if they didn't discover it until afterwards, you can't put that into the equation.
Okay, so let's change it. Let's change the equation. A drone was flown over a rally and law enforcement didn't notice. How about that one?
I mean, I think
how did that happen?
It doesn't actually matter if you guys agree, though.
Don Jr. just tweeted. He tweeted this. He was blocked by Secret Service for flying a drone at his own house at Mar-a-Lago because his dad was there, and it's Don Jr. trying to fly a drone. How did a strange kid do it? So let's just do that. You're right. We don't know when they finally figured out he flew the drone. How is it that when Don Jr. tries to fly a drone on his own property, his own family's property, he can't do it?
He's got a newer drone.
He's got a new drone?
Yeah, he's got a newer drone that has the blackout.
No, he said Secret Service stopped him personally. He said Secret Service stopped him from flying a drone.
Right, because he's got the one with the blackout. I'm not a drone expert.
No. He's saying an individual. He said the Secret Service stopped him from flying a drone. That means a person.
So it wasn't a blackout zone
right.
then. Okay. All right.
So
okay.
Let's just how is it that Don Jr. can't fly a drone at his own property, but a gunman can fly a drone at a presidential rally?
I don't know. I'm not going to speculate. And from the very beginning, I've said that I want to wait until all the details come out as much as possible. And I hope that they don't take 75 years to come out. And speculation before that is going to be operating on an incomplete set of facts, which is, of course, something that you can engage in. But I prefer to wait until the entire report is done, and knowing full well that when that report is completed and presented, that there will be many people who don't believe a word of it.
Then how do you come to the conclusion that the idea that all of these security failures was not a coincidence? Yeah. How do you make an assessment on its probability?
Yeah, because I believe the bulk of the people who protect the president are
speculating.
And that's why I said I believe. I believe that the bulk of the people who protect the president are fundamentally good and are patriots, and that they will discharge their duties to the highest ability of their capabilities. And so I do not believe.
So that's emotional, not based on facts. So
that's a conspiracy theory.
But that's not based on any facts. You're just saying, I personally feel a way, I think I'm going to choose to think this thing.
I don't think it's based on a conspiracy theory because I don't think it's based entirely on my feelings, because I've got to believe that the Secret Service has some sort of internal...
Yeah, that's an emotional argument again.
No.
Yes, it is.
Wait.
You have to believe that's an emotional argument. It's not based on facts.
Can I finish the sentence?
Sure.
Okay. That they have some form of internal screening process that looks at the people, and much the way you have to have your top secret clearance renewed, they must have some sort of evaluation process that's looking at their agents. And if
speculative.
If they don't, they should probably have one. But
so we don't know in that regard. So what's your assessment based on then? Yeah. It's emotional. Yeah. We don't know what their internal screening process is. That's not part of the equation. We don't know. We do know that Dan Bongino, who is a good source, who was in the Secret Service, has already called out numerous unprecedented errors in this.
Errors. I can tell you this.
Anomalies. We'll call them anomalies.
So I have not been following. I've been engaged as a delegate from California. I've been involved in the RNC since this occurred. So I have not been tracking this as much as possible. Did Dan say that those could only occur through a deliberate error did he say they could be accidents, or they could only happen if somebody allowed it to happen? What did Dan say?
I don't think he said one way or the other. I think he pointed out, you don't release the president when you've identified a threat. We have a holding room for this.
Agreed.
So how is it possible then that all of these law enforcement agents, for one, how do we have the dispute between law enforcement and Secret Service as to who is supposed to be guarding the building? By all means, we can argue that each and every one of these things is an anomaly, and it was sometimes people in the lottery. If that's the case, Occam's razor suggests that is the improbable outcome, as you described it, the Swiss cheese of failure that you can move through. There's actually a really simple straight line, and it's that they identified the individual, and there was some official capacity that allowed it to happen. That's actually 2 steps. That could be one logistics officer. When the Secret Service calls in and we got a threat, they say, it's taken care of, don't worry about it. That sentence from one high-ranking official would shut down all of the normal procedures of Secret Service. That makes infinitely more sense and is a higher probability than Swiss cheese.
Except for the one where that's all answers all the questions except for the why did the snipers not? Because they don't need permission to shoot, right? So when the snipers saw him 2 minutes out, why didn't they shoot?
Well, it could. Imagine this scenario. One person in an official capacity who has logistic functionality is told by local law enforcement, we saw a suspicious guy. Don't worry about him. We're good. We know. 3 hours out, he's flying a drone. We're good. Okay. Snipers.
Again, speculative because we don't know that he flew we don't know that they knew he flew the drone. They may have discovered that after the fact, so that may not have happened.
And so, and then we'll shift into the more obscene and absurd, improbable scenario that no one noticed a drone flying over the president and had no explanation for it, which is if that were true, one of the most highly anomalous. No one noticed a drone flying over a presidential rally. Now that's crazy. Because I've been to a dozen, you've been to a dozen. I mean, the idea that law enforcement wouldn't spot a drone flying over a presidential rally is patently absurd. So my point ultimately is, 26 minutes out, we got a suspicious guy on the roof. Official logistical officer in the Secret Service says, we're aware of this, we're on it. This keeps every individual compartmentalized and unaware of what's going on. You don't need every single person to know. Why didn't the snipers open fire? Because the logistic officer said, we got local friendlies on that roof. And they go, okay. The official story was that the snipers on the roof didn't know if the person they were seeing was a local law enforcement or otherwise, which says to me, the likelier scenario is that someone in an official capacity was telling people everything was fine. And the simplest solution is, we're in a room right now with like 10 doors. I mean, like 7. If I was to instruct security to guard each door, each individual officer following my logistical commands would not know who was guarding the other door. If I said, Jeremy, you're going to be on the back door, Jeremy doesn't know where Luke is. Everyone thinks the doors are guarded, but I intentionally leave that door in front of us unguarded. And then I tell everybody when they say, hey, we're seeing a weird guy. No, we're well aware of it. Then the door kicks open and the guy bursts in and throws water balloons at everybody. How does that happen? One person kept everyone compartmentalized. One person. That makes infinitely more sense than random kids slipped through Swiss cheese in every conceivable way.
Well, what you're talking about there is a process, I think it's called deconfliction, where there's supposed to be police on the roof from one agency. The snipers who have overwatch from the Secret Service have to make sure that the person there is not that force. So in that case, all it takes is you're supposed to have somebody on that roof. You don't put anybody there, and somebody then goes on that.
No. It's infinitely worse than that. The shooter was identified 10 minutes prior as a threat. Outright, Secret Service protocol, keep Trump in the holding zone until threat is cleared. How did that bypass? A logistical officer said, guys, we've taken care of it. A single word from someone in an official capacity, and they say, Trump, you're good to go. Problem solved. That makes infinitely more sense than...
Again, I still want to wait for the entire report to come out.
That's absolutely fine. I'm saying right now, we have not been given any official timeline of events. It's only coming out in pieces, and we're trying to figure out what makes the most sense based on what we know now. Of course, we can't trust the government as an official source, and that's a fair point. Therefore, I can back off the drone thing because it's coming from official law enforcement sources. What we can say is most of the media is basing this off law enforcement sources. However, there is a lot of eyewitness testimony and people on the ground who gave firsthand witness, plus the video we all watched.
Correct.
The video, the synchronization. So what we know for sure, 2 minutes before the shots were fired, 2 minutes and 1 second, people were screaming, he's on the roof, he's got a gun, in full view of the police. And there was no action taken. 2 minutes to just calmly walk Trump off the stage. And that in and of itself is shockingly anomalous. Now, I do think it's fair to say we know of the 10-minute threat assessment because the law enforcement officially told that to members of Congress, who then reported it in a public letter to the public. I think it's fair to say that's their official position. What is the answer? They didn't give one. They said 10 minutes prior, we knew of the threat. We brought Trump out anyway. Okay, right away, you've got an official anomalous action. They knew there was a threat against the president, was never cleared, and they released him. At the bare minimum, that is criminal negligence. Bare minimum.
It really reminds me of all those feel-good videos where it's like a high school football team and there's like one special needs kid, and then like they all pretend like they
let him
trying
score
to
the
check on
touchdown?
the- Yes.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened.
They let him score. Because every time I see this guy, I'm like, this guy?
And you saw the reports from someone who was like, he didn't make the rifle team. No, it's not just that he didn't make the rifle team. He was so bad, we asked him not to come
was
back
missing
because
like
it was
20
dangerous.
feet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
But he was practicing the day before, and that's why some people are calling him retardy.
Yeah, he's got
Oswald.
several years
But
since
personally,
then to try.
I'm lactose intolerant for Swiss cheese. Personally, myself, but
Yeah.
I don't believe that theory.
But you like that other kind. You're a milk guy, though, from earlier. I think I remember. I thought you said you liked milk.
I think it's fascinating that, you know,
I don't know the
here's-
joke,
here's
but it
a
must
question
be
for you.
good.
Who do you-
Luke's laughing.
I got a question for you. Who do you think killed JFK?
We'll find out.
It's not so much who killed him, but who set up the person who killed him.
So you don't think that it was just Lee Harvey Oswald in and of himself? And
In the case of JFK, I do not believe so, yes.
why would this be any different? Especially considering with JFK, we didn't have a year, 8 years. I mean, they accused Donald Trump of being a traitor to his country and tried to put him in prison and impeach him in his first term. This is substantially more extreme than what JFK went through. And I don't think any reasonable person...
I'm just saying the reason I believe about JFK is the bulk of all the findings that have come out, because the full body of evidence that we have, also taking into account what we don't know and inferring what that could be, already exists. We do not have that body of evidence in the current case. So I think it's premature to assume that it is some form of conspiracy.
I think it's the other way around. I think when beginning an investigation, we take the pieces that we have together and we begin our investigation with a hypothesis which may turn out to be wrong.
Tim, I think in this case, we're just looking at the same glass of water, and I think it's half full, and you think
I
it's half
disagree.
empty.
I think for political reasons, you're refusing to say what's obvious.
That's not true at all.
I mean, I think that with all of these issues that have happened to Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson's prediction, it is an absurdity to try and just say right now the likely scenario is accident. It's like this has been.
Now, what I'm saying is that is my assumption, and I am waiting for the report.
Right. It's betting on the long shot.
I don't think it's the long shot.
Well, let's shift the story anyway. Otherwise, we're just going on circles. We have this from the post-millennial. Mark Zuckerberg praises Trump as a badass after assassination attempt. Seeing Donald Trump get up after getting shot in the face and pump his fist in the air with the American flag is one of the most badass things I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, subtitle immediately donates $200 million
That's
to
the only
fortify
thing. That may be
election.
the only thing Zuckerberg said recently that I agree with.
Mark Zuckerberg is trying so hard to save Facebook, right? He's rebranding himself.
He's in trouble.
He's now saying he's sympathetic. He's saying he's not going to weigh in. You know, Facebook will continue to keep political stuff out of people's feeds because they don't like it. But I'm not going to endorse a political candidate. I really think this is an effort to try and, you know, he realizes basically a lot of Trump supporters still use Facebook.
Well, no, Zuckerberg is in trouble. Zuckerberg realizes that he gave hundreds of millions of dollars to the Democratic machine.
He funded it
before, and now he realizes the Zuckerbucks are going to be finally recalled under a Donald Trump administration, and he's now trying to save face and trying to, of course, not get hit as much as a lot of people.
No, I think you're all wrong. I think Mark Zuckerberg started exercising, which made him conservative.
MMA. He started.
He did.
To do
He did
jujitsu.
do on that hydrofoil skiing or like something with the American flag recently.
right.
You know, like
Have
he
they
was doing
made
something
any
like that,
political-
wakeboarding or whatever it
No,
was.
he's just trying to grift into winning back conservatives. I think it's true that Trump posting that thing the other day, being like Zuckerbucks, watch out, is probably a calculation on some level. But, you know, he is struggling. I mean, to be fair, there were a lot of conservatives who were like, we should ban TikTok. And you know who benefits if we ban TikTok? Facebook and Meta.
I actually think in all seriousness, Luke is correct. Mark Zuckerberg made a huge bet against Donald Trump. Trump is extremely offended by it. Trump is on track to be president. Zuckerberg knows it, and Trump is going to drop the hammer on Facebook.
Yes.
Did Zuckerberg
Facebook has a lot of infrastructure with WhatsApp, Instagram, and of course Facebook, but also a lot of other side projects that they're working on, especially when it comes to VR, especially when it comes to artificial intelligence. And truly, I do believe the next president will be deciding the future of the digital world, especially when it comes to AI developments. So Mark Zuckerberg understands that he's in absolute trouble.
And you know that AI is going to basically coalesce under 3 or 4 companies that have, like, you know, and he wants Facebook to be He wants Facebook to be at the front of the line for that.
Do we know if he posted this on Threads or how did he say it?
It was in an interview.
I keep getting told that the monthly actives on Threads are enormous. I don't believe it.
No one believes that. No, there's no way.
Am I wrong? Wasn't there just a headline? There's like 200 million active users.
All of
what?
Meta is struggling, and I think there are probably a lot of reasons for Mark Zuckerberg to pivot right now.
Zuckerberg has a lot of skeletons in his closet. Sorry, but he also spies on people. He also fortified the election. He also manipulated the algorithms. He committed a lot of illegal actions that he soon could be held accountable for. Sorry, Hannah, I cut you off. Go ahead.
My name's Hannah Claire. I can't believe you can't get that after 3 years. You should be concerned. No, I mean, I really think that Mark Zuckerberg is attempting to save himself for a variety of reasons. I do think that Meta as a business really needed conservative support to get rid of TikTok to continue to be viable because they're just hemorrhaging engagement. And I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg is worried about the legal consequences of his influence in the election. The part is that, every major social media company in America has colluded with the federal government, especially under Biden. And so, there is a level of they are all realizing that there is a changing of the guards that's imminent. And it is fascinating to watch him because the other part is some of this. He could be saying, oh, Trump was a badass and it was so cool and whatever else. But he didn't have to get a new haircut and wear a chain and change his style, right? He is really trying to shift away from the image he had in the past because he was so weird and
he
not
looks
cool.
so different from his congressional hearings where he looked like a literal robot.
Yeah.
There's also to add on to what you're saying, Hannah Claire, is
Thank you
also
so
Zuck has some problems with photographs on both of his platforms that has basically gone kind of unpunished. Where he's got a major whatever the acronym is. I don't want to get Tim in trouble, but photos of people that shouldn't be on there,
right.
And it runs rampant on Instagram and it runs rampant on Facebook. And he's pretty much, unless I'm wrong, he's pretty much avoided any kind of major backlash for that.
What I think is interesting about his appearance is that when those photos came out of him looking like an android with pale skin and short hair, he had a visceral reaction to that, which makes me wonder if there's something internal to humans where they can recognize like a masculine failure. So for what reason would he, the billionaire and one of the richest men in the world, have to grow his hair out, grow a beard, get a tan, start exercising,
start training jujitsu?
Well, regardless of what other people think, he individually felt something was wrong with him.
Yeah, and who do we contrast him to? Elon Musk, who got hair plugs as soon as he could. I mean, it's fascinating. We all want to look young, right? We all want to look young and healthy and project fix, but also Silicon Valley now has this. You kind of have to be cool. I mean, Elon Musk is setting the bar to be an influential person in a way that Mark Zuckerberg just never captured. I mean,
Elon Musk as a brand
is
infinitely preferable to Mark Zuckerberg as a brand.
And Mark Zuckerberg as a brand was very much linked, I think, with the Democratic Party and trying to be like, well, I'm not cool, but look, I'm active in a way that, I think of like beta male woke guys are like, but I might not be good looking or strong. They both suck compared
to Tom. Tom's my guy.
Tom, are you still one? Is he still one of your top six?
I never took him out. Sweet. Tom's the original OG cool guy.
Yeah.
He made a site, he sold it, got paid, and retired.
Yeah.
He's a photographer now.
Yeah, he just goes and does whatever he wants.
He's a winner. That's what he is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I've got criticisms for him. He jumped ship. Nobody knew what was going to happen to these platforms, so he just sold. But then Fox immediately, I think he sold to Murdoch, right?
Yeah, and they tanked it.
Yeah, it got sour. It was loaded with ads. It became sluggish, and you started getting spam from everybody, and it was like, we can't use this platform anymore. The spam is really what killed MySpace.
Yeah.
I think
used to, that inbox, I used to like crazy. Like, I was like, people... I used the network, and when I was in a band back then, we'd have our band page where you could set like your 3 or 4 songs on there, and then I'd use it to network like crazy, and then it's like LinkedIn now. LinkedIn's suffering that same fate.
Shiny Toy Guns, famously, it's a band for those not familiar. They started a profile. I think this was before there were even bands on MySpace, and started messaging people saying, "Hey, check out our band." That was fine, but then it worked, and everyone started doing it, and all of a sudden your inbox was full of garbage, and you couldn't even see your friends' messages anymore.
Yep.
Facebook said, we don't have none of that, and that's why I switched. Yep. Me and my friends were like, I can't even get your message anymore, dude. And they were like, well, switch to Facebook. They have like a chat feature, and I was like, okay.
Yep, that was about right.
I think social media in Silicon Valley must be such a weird world, right? Because you're always trying to you'll at one moment be sort of the golden kid. You create this thing, everyone loves it, Facebook blows up, but inevitably whatever's popular right now, especially in terms of tech, will fade away. I mean, you said this once, a family member had asked him, how long are you going to do this? And he's like, well, potentially podcasting could be not around forever. Yeah. And I think the desire to stay relevant is innate both to the human condition, but also to technology. And I wonder how much of Mark Zuckerberg's previous dialogue he'll change in order to try and stay in the minds of both consumers and also in the favor of whatever politicians are taking over.
He has a PR team. He has a marketing team. They're telling him, okay, you got to make these steps. You got to look like this. You got to do this.
Do you remember?
He's in trouble because if I'm Donald Trump, I'm checking the receipts and I'm like, how much did you spend to fortify this election?
In short,
Oh, you spied on how many J6ers? What kind of psychological studies? Oh, you twisted the algorithm here, or you worked with the feds here. He's taking those notes, and Facebook is in major trouble, especially if Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States.
Luke, do you remember those series of pictures that Zuckerberg posted years ago where he was like on a tractor or gutting fish or doing like all these like like look at me, I'm human type stuff?
When he was like grilling in his backyard.
Like smoking some meat, sweet baby Ray's.
Yeah,
even
like
the
that
kind of
video
stuff.
was weird. Yeah.
But beyond that,
he loves smoking that meat.
Do any of you disagree with the premise that getting shot and then standing up and shaking your fist in front of the American flag is badass? Do you agree with that?
No, I think it is. And I actually think that, like, I watched this random Irish influencer do a reel, and she, nothing to do with politics at all in her regular life, but she was like, look, I normally hate Trump, but even she's got a very thick Irish accent. She's saying like, but when I can't.
Do it, Hannah.
Hannah Claire, do it.
Are you that low IQ? You can't get my name right? I'm very worried about you.
I got you, Hannah.
The thing is, she was saying, even I was like, yeah, let's go America. And she has nothing to do with this country, and she's openly hates Donald Trump. I mean, I think that what really was an iconic moment, which is why people like Joy Reid have such a visceral, like, no, you can't like this reaction.
I like it as her TDS gets more. I liked how she adopted his look. Like, she hated him so much, she dyed her hair blonde, and then now, the hate is making her uglier. And I think that's
all she thinks about, I guess.
Yeah, it like eats these people up. They're like Gollum. They go from like this thing, they become obsessed with the ring or Trump, and it ruins their life. I mean, look at one woman on The View and tell me that woman is happy. They all hate their life. There's no way. They might go home to their mansions. They all look miserable all the time. Bill Maher looks miserable.
They're all drugged up.
And they're all they got to get baked to get through the day. Every day.
Yeah. On a whole bunch of antidepressants, on a whole bunch of like pharmaceuticals, and a bunch of illegal stuff. You look at the upper echelons of society, there's a huge substance abuse problem that no one really wants to talk about.
We got breaking news from just a few minutes ago.
Oh, boy.
Florida man charged over alleged written threats to kill Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. The arrest comes less than a week after the assassination attempt on Trump, which has led to scrutiny of the Secret Service and concerns about escalating political violence. So as Libs of TikTok starts pointing out all of the people who are calling for and cheering this on, by all means, we can make the distinction between those who lament the miss and those who advocate for it. I think we're going to start seeing law enforcement go after these people in in a shocking way.
A bunch of them are going to pop up, too. Like, you're going to get reports. This won't be the first.
And it's Facebook. They say after investigating the reports on the suspect's Facebook account, JPD detectives found that Wiseman had made multiple threats against Trump and Vance, who earlier in the week became the Republican nominees for the president and vice president. Police did not provide further details about Wiseman. NBC News was unable to reach him for comment. The arrest comes less than a week after blah, blah, blah. People are going to get arrested.
Facebook dropped the dime. Facebook's worried now. They're starting to rat out their own users.
Ooh, yeah.
No, I wouldn't be surprised.
I think this is likely passively somewhat Libs of TikTok.
Yeah.
Either people are sending it to Libs or finding it and posting these, and other people are sharing it. They say that Michael M. Wiseman, arrested Friday on charges of written threats to kill. They checked his Facebook.
Did they show it?
They don't show it. Oh. Yeah, they don't show exactly what he said. I'm willing to bet this was substantially more egregious than saying "I wish" or something. Yeah. However, I think the people who are saying next time X should happen or something should happen, like what Kyle Gass said on stage, they're going to get a visit from the Secret Service.
Yep.
Because when you say next time, you are saying it should happen again. You're
wishing for it.
Yeah. Well, it's not an imminent threat. So the legal standard is you say, go do this thing right now here. Like if you said Donald Trump is currently here, go do thing. That's an imminent threat. These people are saying next time it happens, they want it to succeed, is a call to violence. I think that violates the rules of these platforms. Whether that will get people arrested, I don't know. I think it would likely just result in a visit. And they may actually, here's what might happen. These people were posting publicly. They wish it happened. How much do you want to bet they have private messages?
Oh, God, yeah.
Where they're saying more direct things.
Well,
law enforcement will get those, and that may be what happened.
This article also says Hannah Claire pulled
Are
off.
you stealing the point
Watch
I'm
me
about
do this.
to
I'm going
make?
to take her. Nice. Where are you
He's
about
fired.
to go? Go ahead. I was
going to say that the Jupiter police arrested him, and that makes him 20 miles north of Mar-a-Lago, according to WFLA.
Not my point.
Do you want to also...
No, my point
Call
is...
him out, Hannah.
My point is...
Are you okay? Your memory is so bad. You've known me for 3 years, and you can't remember my name. I think you should get your IQ checked. I am desperately worried about you.
I refuse.
Sorry, keep going.
I refuse to use your pronouns.
It's too complicated for you? You can't remember my name?
It's your
I'm
pronoun.
concerned,
I'm not
Luke.
It's Friday night, everybody. Come on. All right. No, what this report says is that multiple people that lived by him reported him to police. Yep. So what you're going to see is more civilians saying, yo, this cat lady down the street.
Maybe he was on a Facebook like neighborhood page or some crap.
Those are always
what does
those
he
are
have
my
in his
favorite,
yard,
by the
right?
way.
Like, does he have something creepy in his yard hanging out?
Yeah, you know he's got some effigies or something.
There is a level where I don't like the idea that we are like all monitoring each other and reporting
gets
each
a
other
little
to
creepy.
police. On the other hand, like imminent threats of violence are serious. It's a very difficult balance to have.
As long as they don't start changing the definition of imminent. As long as we don't go from like, rats he missed, oh, you're just some TDS weirdo, to like, well, here, you know what I mean? Like calling for it. I think they have to be very careful in defining what calling for it is. And I wouldn't mind if they visited a couple of high profile people, because that's what you really have to do. Like going after these randos, you just go after Kyle Gass, you go after like, anybody with a following, and then you work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
Like find a couple of these libs who are saying unhinged things, make an example of them, visit them, film them crying because they're having consequences, and then put it out there.
Yeah.
But I worry about pushing people underground too.
Correct. I was just about to say that. Isn't that
Yeah.
just going to teach people just not to post it, but still think it?
Yeah.
People are allowed to think whatever they want.
They can think it as long as they know that there's some consequence for it. I think people.
What I meant by was plan it without posting it. You're right.
Yeah.
Anybody can think.
This has been the federal government's wet dream for a long time.
Yeah.
Especially like body cameras. It's really funny. There was this viral thread from a leftist who was like, "I just learned body cameras was actually police propaganda to trick leftists into supporting it." Police wanted a mass surveillance network that would protect them and allow for faster convictions. So how do you do it? Get every cop to wear a camera. It's not to put cops in jail to hold them accountable. But they knew that if they came out and they said, we want the government to spend millions of dollars on cameras for us for law enforcement purposes, the left would say the massive expansion of a surveillance state is bad. We do not want police to have cameras. So they said, we have to approach this from the inverse. We need the narrative to be police are bad and they must be monitored. So the cops have to wear body cameras to stop the bad guys, and you'll get all of the left in major liberal cities demanding the government pay for it. And it worked, and Obama and many others demanded federal funding for body cameras. And now most body camera footage is used as evidence against suspects.
Yeah. I'm still glad it exists, though. I know it makes me a fool, but like,
no.
It has worked against cops several times. Like, I think this should be in every classroom, too.
And it works more often. Like 99% of body camera footage cases are to the benefit of the police officers.
Yes, they are.
Is there a problem with that, though?
No.
I'm just saying that
the cameras never lie.
When it comes to the online monitoring of people's opinions, we are entering a territory where before social media, people thought these things.
Yeah.
Now they're saying them in public and they're crossing the line and getting arrested for it. The answer, of course, is you made the choice to publicly declare a violent threat against the president. Don't do that. And now you're going to go to jail for it.
I don't like that they're calling it. A lot of people on the right are like calling it, or on the left are calling it doxing. It's not. First of all, you posted it publicly on your Facebook page. It's not like they included your home address. What they're really talking about is libs of TikTok, because it's her posts that are going viral. But she's not linking their address. She's not. I mean, I know, like, I don't want to go back and rehash that out. Like, Tim and I mostly agree on this. But like, I get queasy when we're like witch hunting people. As long as it's like a real direct threat, then I care less. But if it's like, oh, here's some TDS person and they make $11 an hour, let's screw their life over. Like
Home Depot.
The Home Depot one was weird. I didn't think it was a direct threat, but I mean, I think that these are public. You post it in public, that has consequences. By the way, this is what the right has had to live by
and
for years
yeah,
anyway.
but there was one that Libs posted where the person said, they said something like, when this happened, I immediately was upset they didn't succeed. And then they posted beneath it, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I can't believe this man has made me begin to feel these feelings. It's wrong and I shouldn't be thinking this.
That's good.
And she got fired. Or I don't know if she got fired.
Wait, she shouldn't get fired.
I don't know if she got fired, but I know Libs posted it. Critical. I think she did get fired. And I'm like, a person saying I should not be thinking these things should not be fired for that.
I agree. Yeah, that's like a good
That's
thing.
cancel culture.
But also the real thing there too is like, to what extent should employers prohibit their employees from expressing their political views outside of work? So when you're being hired by a company that says, well, as soon as you make something that's actionable, we're going to let you go because of it. That's not a place we should be either.
The issue is the question of reasonableness. If a person says on Facebook, I like Donald Trump, he's going to help this country, they should not get fired or sanctioned for it.
Correct.
If a person says something like, I don't support gay marriage and I think children shouldn't get sex changes, they should not get fired for it. If a person says something like, I think this particular group of people should be excised from society, I have no problem if their business fires them for it. The reason for it is businesses have no requirement to absorb your political opinions, and within reasonable limits. During cancel culture, the issue I take is a firefighter donated to Kyle Rittenhouse, they fired him for it. Okay, That's insane. If he had publicly come out, gave a Hitler speech and was saluting and stuff, and they fired him, that I understand.
Correct.
But the left was unreasonable and the businesses were unreasonable. My issue is we have to understand the difference between when a private company can do what they want and when they're acting unreasonably, bending the knee to zealous political factions. If I run a business, if I start a pizza restaurant and I hire an employee and they start posting online, no one should ever buy pizza. It's bad for you. Do not buy this. I'd fire them in 2 seconds. I'd say
it directly affects your business.
You are intentionally causing us harm. I have no obligation to keep paying you to be here. But it's my political opinion that pizza is unhealthy food, and I'm like, then go work somewhere else. I owe you nothing. You owe me nothing. Bye bye. Have a nice day. We disagree.
Is the at-will employment thing? I think that's at a state level, right? Like,
yeah,
we always say
policy.
So how many? Just rough estimate. How many states are at will? Like I know Wisconsin is. Because it's come up,
but that thing really doesn't matter because you can.
It doesn't play in here.
You can fire people. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're an employer and you go to someone and say, "I'm going to give you a reason for your termination," now you're asking for legal trouble.
Yeah, that's why they never give it in Wisconsin. They're like, we're going a different direction.
Right.
Yeah.
And they usually just say budgetary reasons.
Yeah.
Where you're allowed to like, it's so stupid how it's like, if you fire someone for a political reason, you're going to get in trouble. Businesses just say, we went over the budget and we figured we didn't need this position anymore.
Yeah. Prove otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go to Super Chat. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you like it, and head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly. And we've got a bunch of really awesome shows coming up as we always do. We'll be back in the beautiful West Virginia next week. So we'll get your Super Chats while we're here. Clint Torres says, howdy people. Always the first. Daniel Brent says Leviticus 8:23-24. Moses anoints Aaron by putting sacrificial blood on his right earlobe and right hand. Also, howdy people. I see a lot of people have been posting that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's been anointed.
Lauren Burbank referenced that when we were recording with her.
The Scrub and Scrub says, hope to play some Magic the Gathering with you, Jeremy, and Ian one day. Been a fan of all of you for a while. I'm normally a modern player, so I'd have to borrow a deck.
He was jonesing. We were hanging out for a little bit today. I could see he had.
I asked him, I was like, you got any EDH?
Yeah.
He was like, just pre-cons. I was like,
he was so.
And
The look in his eye was so disappointed.
And then I said, are they sleeved? And he goes, no. And I was like,
Like, do you play?
I got no idea what you're talking about.
I was sitting there so confused today.
Yeah, Luke was just playing with the dogs.
and then we basically spoke a different language for like 30 minutes about sets, terminology, jargon. But my good friend, we want to do a Friday night. We want to do a Friday night show playing poker, but there's legal limitations. So we're thinking maybe we do Magic Commander, and we're going to be building like a bunch of decks. I think I've got maybe like 15 high tier EDH decks built already. Fun, silly ones. Some are completely absurd. Do you know the Maryland commander deck?
I do not.
She's a commander, mono black, that her ability basically makes you vampiric tutor instead of drawing cards.
I like that.
And the deck is 96 swamps, and it's ad nauseum. And what's the other card? Basically, long story short,
Go infinite.
No,
What's a win con?
You draw your whole deck and then deal 90 damage to everybody, and then you use Dark Orb to cut the damage in half to you, so you live.
Got it.
So it's the ultimate glass cannon. If anyone has a single counter spell, you instantly lose against everyone else.
But the one time it works is legendary. Yeah.
It always works the first time because nobody sees it coming, and then it'll never work again.
Yeah, they put the deck away for 3 months.
Exactly. Until a new person comes in and you go, don't say anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a few decks like that. But mostly we're trying to build decks that are kind of weak because they're fun and they do silly things. But I hope you enjoyed that jargon that confused most of you. Let's go. Conspiracy Ranch says, now that Kyle deleted his apology, maybe admit that he didn't deserve it in the first place. See the poster of the shooter being a hero. What if they say, sorry, Tim, going to accept that too?
He deleted it?
Kyle Guest deleted it?
Oh, I'm just like, man, the content for my channel, I'm telling you. I've been drinking through a fire. I was at
He
the
deleted
RNC.
it!
That's wild. Why would you delete it now?
Whoa.
That's worse than leaving it up.
They're done. That's it.
That's it.
Tenacious
So that tells
D
you
is over.
That tells you here's what happened. They said put up the apology. We're going to try to save it. It didn't work. So he said, "F you. I'm not. I'm deleting it."
Jack Black deleted his statement as well.
Huh.
Wow.
There's
Crazy.
something
They both
going
went
on.
the ground on it, huh?
Yep.
Well, someone told them, "Hey, we're gonna make it all right if you apologize," and then they didn't.
I
That's
think the
probably what
PR
happened.
company said, "Are you nuts?" PR 101, say nothing, and wait for it to all.
But it's too
blow over.
late.
Yeah.
Now they're double trouble.
Yes.
Monday video. Tim, don't scoop me on this one.
I'm not. By Monday, it's going to be old news.
I know. All right, I'll work Saturday.
Let's go.
It has been a really crazy week. So much stuff is going on.
I was getting up. I was like doing 5 videos before going down to the RNC, and then by the time I got down to the RNC, they were all outdated. I'm like,
Cameron Keir says, are you guys going to be live at the DNC as well? If Biden makes it there, it might be the shortest convention speech of all time. No, because I have grown quite fond of living.
Yeah.
he does like it.
We were talking
Well,
about
it makes
this.
more
we were
sense.
talking about this
Makes
earlier.
more sense to cover a virtual convention virtually, anyways, right? I mean, so that's the meta of
Even
everything.
Luke wimped out. I'm going. If
No, they're in
I
Chicago.
don't wimp. I didn't wimp out. We literally had.
Got
I
emotional.
literally had a gun put to my head by Chicago PD. It wasn't nice.
That was NATO. That wasn't the DNC.
Yeah. In Chicago.
Luke doesn't like Chicago. I don't like Chicago either. But
Yeah.
my concern is, I'm not worried about riots and protests at the RNC. That never happens. I was there in 2012. Luke and I were both there at the RNC in 2012, 2016. 2020 was like virtual or something. So it was like, I don't know what happened. I don't remember that one. And now we're back here and I'm just like, I've done RNCs. No, but they don't do anything. They march around and they wiggle their fingers. DNCs, everyone we've been to, they have torn fences down, physically attacked
Yeah, this one's
people.
gonna be
It's
wild.
nuts.
blood on the streets.
Yeah.
Like
So they probably are
clashes,
gonna-
fights. Last time someone lit himself on fire. So and I was
Getting
there
in and
seeing
out is
that.
going to be impossible. You're going to be every checkpoint's going to have. It's Chicago even. You're going to have far leftists blocking the streets. It's going to take 30 minutes to try and get through the checkpoint, if that. And they're going to go up to your car and bang on the windows and scream. And if someone like me is in that car, it's not going to be fun. So I'm not going anywhere near that psychopathic
I was with Mike
garbage.
Cernovich at the last DNC, and literally a guy lit himself on fire.
Yeah, all that footage will just be re-downloaded and re-uploaded by some
When
internet
was
Twitter
that one?
person anyway.
That was
2016?
That was
2012?
Philadelphia.
We were there in 2016, and
Yeah.
they ripped they tried ripping the barricades down. They started the barricades were twice as high because they knew the left was going to attack, and they went out super far, and there were thousands of far leftists jumping the barricades and trying to storm into the building. They were in the secure perimeter, and I'm like, not interested. These people are nuts.
This year, the Palestine people will be.
Oh, dude, it's going to be bonkers.
That'd be bonkers.
And in Chicago, with the gangs and the weapons and the corrupt police, man, you have got a powder keg upon. If they were doing the event in like Raleigh or something, I might be like, maybe we get something nearby and see who's there. Nah, Chicago, no way. I'm from that place. I know it. I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm completely wrong, and we watch from afar and nothing happens, and I go, oh, look, I guess it was okay.
You lose nothing if that. You lose nothing.
Yeah, I just don't see a benefit to being in that because it's hard enough to get into the RNC. You know, they made us walk So they had a barricade 50 feet from our car, and they made us walk across the bridge and walk past the protests to go around. And I'm like, so we took the river path instead, because I'm like, if we go up that way, I'm going to try and we'll hug the river. They made us cross the river, go around, cross the river, and then walk. It's seriously, we had to walk 4 blocks because there was a gate. The gate was open, and the cop's standing there, and we're like, our car's right there. Can we go? And he looks at us. Where's your car? And we're like, car's right there. Can we go? And then he just closes the gate and he goes, go around. And we were like, dude, our car is literally 50 feet away. Yeah. And then we went around. The cops at the other side, because it was also gated, he goes, you can't come in. And we're like, our car is in there. We have badges. And he was like, nah, you can't come in. And we're like, dude, literally our car is right there. This is how we got it in. And he goes, I'll tell you what, you can try. See what they say. We're like, okay. We walked in, got our car, and drove out. Yeah. Nuts. Yeah. Not only that, but they didn't even know how badges worked at this time. It was really weird. So I can't imagine the DNC is going to be any better. But also, like, we didn't prepare, we didn't plan, we did not want to go to the DNC.
But it was very, to be fair, also like very uneventful event. They had a lot, there was just
you're going to go to. You're saying you're going to the DNC.
If Rumble has a studio there,
how are you going to get in without far leftists? Like,
they don't know who I am,
bro.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
Get a hotel within the perimeter. Then you don't have to worry about it.
Dude,
that's the gold standard.
The DNC level protests, we're talking about, there's probably 50 to 100 high-level far-left organizers from different organizations that have databases of personalities and photographs that they disseminate. I don't know if, Luke, we were in France.
No, we were in Hamburg, Germany, where they were literally passing around photos of us.
That I know.
I remember
but in France, we went to a direct action house where they were making weapons, they were making flags, and we walked around and all the different departments. It was industrialized. Yeah. So I don't know. In Chicago, I've been to the activist houses they have, their lofts. They rent out these industrial garbage, asbestos-ridden properties where like 10 people all put in like $500 a month to maintain it. And then they have computers, they have databases. They say, here's who's going to be here, here's what they look like. And then they share the photos. And then what happens is on the day of, when the bulk of the activists show up and don't know anything, they're given pieces of paper, they're shown things on phones. So I'm just saying.
And just like we saw in the Battle of Seattle, the feds are involved here and they're organizing a lot of the chaos too. So that's another reason why they got it.
They Luke and some journalist, what was that guy's name? Marcus?
Yeah.
They were walking down the street and a German guy yelled Nazi Schweinhund, and random people got up off the ground, ran up and started punching Luke. They didn't know who Luke was. They never saw a picture of him. All it took was one guy. He yelled, pointed at Luke, and then random people ran up and started attacking Luke.
That was Max. He had to get knee surgery afterwards. Yep. Because they just literally stomped him out. I ran. I got out of there, and then the cops are like, "We can't help you. Get out of here."
But here's the crazy.
Like, thanks, guys.
Here's the
we
crazy.
won't help you. Yeah.
Here's the thing about leftist riots. They don't know or care. If a single individual points to another individual and yells Nazi, they will attack you. And this has happened. So I was at a Trump rally in San Jose. I think this was 2015. And they were attacking people. An elderly couple was knocked to the ground. Their hats ripped from their head and they were set on fire. There was a guy wearing a green hoodie. I think it was a green hoodie. It's been a long time. I think the video may be on YouTube somewhere. Oh, no, I think Fusion took it down. And he's bleeding from the mouth because even though he was a part of the mob, someone yelled he was a Trump supporter, and then someone ran up and punched him right in the bottom of the mouth and ripped his bottom lip open, getting blood everywhere. Did not matter if it was true. And he was like, I'm on your side. I hate Trump. I hate Trump. Bleeding all over the place.
So you ruined From for me today, and now you're going to ruin the DNC.
I got an idea for you.
No, you can do whatever you want.
Look, you go ahead.
Jeremy,
You go
I
ahead.
know. I got a guy in England. Maybe we can get you another suit, and you and I we can just go along those brick buildings.
Oh, they'll never see us.
They'll never see us. It's urban camouflage.
Yeah, we'll have to get chain link versions. Probably.
That's why you have the suit. I thought it was a wall reference, but it's urban camouflage.
It works for that too. It works for that as well.
Yeah.
All right. TLO Production says, Tim, I recently flew my new drone in Long Island at the cricket tournament, and it was a no-fly zone. Upon flying at 7 minutes into the flight, Homeland Security showed up and told me not to fly. The drone had no warning of a TFR in the area. DJI drones don't know. Not true.
Yes, they do.
DJI drones do know.
I own one.
It may have been a limited no-fly zone that wasn't approved in the system.
It could have not been FAA.
Right.
Because they showed up, they also transmit that each drone has to transmit like its existence now.
They have a core.
That's how they found
a transponder.
Yeah.
You need a pilot's license to fly.
Yep.
This was the funniest thing because when I was doing the consulting for, it was like the North Atlantic Drone Coalition or whatever it was called, I actually was working with the group that chose the
NADS?
first drone coalition.
North Atlantic Drone
Coalition.
Oh, NADC.
You almost got it. And,
oh my God.
as I'm telling them how they work, what we do, they then told me, you're going to have to get a pilot's license for this. And I
They
was like,
changed that, yeah.
But I was like, I have to go get a pilot's license. And I was like, can you issue me one right now? And they were like, no. And I was like, but you want me? Okay, hold on a second. I just told you the restrictions you need to put in place. Now you want me to take a test from you on the restrictions I just told you to put in place? And they're like, yes. And I was like, dude, I don't need the license. I don't care. I'm not going to fly these things.
Yeah, technically
But that
you
was
need a
right.
license. Yeah, my wife has one. It's easier, I guess, when you're a pilot. Like you can just take a little written thing and
Yeah,
get
if you're
it
a
right away.
no, any pilot license
you're-
should be good.
Yeah, but she has an extra card too. I think. They send
Also,
her
it's
extra
important to
card.
know that these are legal aircraft.
Right.
So if you,
Well, dude, they go by O'Hare, and there's 747s, and there's
so if someone flies a drone over your house and you throw a rock at it, felony. It is a felony to attack aircraft for any reason. And
So that means you can't point a laser at it too, then, right?
yes, you can't.
Wow.
You can't do any of that.
can't. Yep.
And there's a reason for it. If the drone loses control
Sure.
and crashes, it could injure somebody. But the problem we now have is someone once flew a drone over our property, surveilling us, and we don't know where it came from. What am I supposed to do? Like, that's a huge security threat for us. Our security company's going to be like, dude, this is a problem. What am I supposed to do about it?
yeah.
Just let criminals fly drones over the property? It's
Take the
nuts.
ticket, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know.
And it's transmitting the video back in real time anyway. So if you get the drone, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Well-
you used to have to pull the video off it. Now you see it in real time on your.
Yeah. So
controller.
the funny thing is about early drones. I was in Turkey, and this is the earlier drones. I won't name the company, but they could be commandeered by simple Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
And so some rich dude. We were at a resort. Vice had sent me to in Antalya, and some guy was flying his drone, and I saw it, and I pulled up my phone, commandeered it, started filming video from it. Then I released it, and the guy was just confused for a second. And then I walked over and I played the video for him, and they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Bro, these things are not secure. I could have taken your drone and flown it away."
Yeah. Put it in the river. Your $8,000 rig. You know.
But nowadays, encryption and better security and stuff makes it a lot better. Ghost Crusaders TV says, did you see the video Benny Johnson posted of the forensic analyst says that there was a second pew-pew inside the building under the kid? I did see this. They're interesting. I don't know how much veracity there is. Of course, there was a second shooter. There was a sniper team that shot at him.
Yeah.
So they're playing audio, and this is clever, but it doesn't prove anything. It proves multiple shots were fired, and some were fired from different directions. What they did was, this is actually really amazing science. You look at the waveform, and you can see the gunshot and the report. So bang, tsh, bang, tsh.
Right.
You can then see in the waveform, and you can actually measure the time distance very easily. And it's 0.22 seconds. That's what he shows. You know the distance traveled of the bullet based on the sound. When there's an echo, you can actually tell where the echo came from based on the amount of time from when the bullet was fired to when the echo was picked up by the speaker and where the speaker was. Triangulation. Really, really amazing stuff. That's how they're claiming to determine the location of the second shots and how they are incongruous with assessments of snipers firing back. I don't know that's true. Some guy on the internet said a thing.
The whole thing about the second, why wasn't there a second body then? So he just missed and left?
Some guy on the internet also said that like an FBI director was in the back giving signals. So
And that's completely fake.
Yes, absolutely.
Jeez. That stuff is designed to make it impossible for you to figure out what's really going on.
Yeah. Government put some of that stuff out themselves too.
Oh, it's
In my opinion.
always.
Disinfo.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go.
You can tell I spent the week with Luke.
I'm influencing and radicalizing everyone.
Yeah, I got home and I was like, he needs a RO water in a glass, please.
Yeah, no
to my
plastic.
wife.
I don't want
Yeah,
it.
she's like, what? I'm like, just do it. You don't
Let's
want him
go.
to hear about his balls.
Joseph Metzler adds that the individual who made this is a PhD professor who does audio. Yes, and I believe he does audio forensics specifically in his science. It is actually really cool outside of any conspiracy theories that you can take a recording from one room of someone hitting a table and then someone else on the other side hitting the wall, and he will be able to tell you how far apart they are and like the size of the room based on the waveform. It's really cool stuff. Yeah, the way the sound bounces off can be seen in the waveform based on time and distance and the speed of sound. Super cool stuff. And then you get a PhD when you figure all that stuff out, I guess.
I feel like you earned that.
All right, let's grab some more super chats. Karasu Macha says, maybe a standalone complex. Enough people look the other way. I don't believe it, of course. Most likely it was allowed. Standalone complex, I also suspect as being as very possible.
Yeah.
And that's basically when enough people take a concerted, take an action that appears to be in concert when it's actually individual. So if enough agents hate Donald Trump and are wishing in the back of their mind something would happen, one guy sees the guy and just says, I'm going to pretend like I didn't see that. Another guy sees the guy and says, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. And it's not incompetence. It's that enough of them in their own minds think, I will not stick my neck out for Donald Trump, resulting in the availability of this opportunity for the shooter.
Now, if you were going with a segment of the general population, the chances of that might be higher, but law enforcement is almost universally in support of Donald Trump. And so like, if you can't apply that as rules, like percentages from the general population to the sector of people who are involved in security and police.
Is the FBI in favor of Donald Trump?
I don't know the FBI. But what I'm saying is,
I think it's fair to say no.
But what I'm saying,
easily no.
But what I'm saying is, what I'm saying is that it's a different set of standards. And
sure.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. Recognize that there's a difference between the support that Donald Trump has from the law enforcement community and the lack of support from maybe general aspect of community.
And the exact same argument, you cannot use local law enforcement in place of federal law enforcement in this capacity. The most evidence, I would say, suggests federal law enforcement opposes Trump. And outside of that, support for Donald Trump wasn't enough to stop New York cops from gleefully arresting him and holding him in court. I would imagine that, or how about this, gleefully arresting Proud Boys and criminally charging them when they voluntarily gave up information after being attacked and fighting with Antifa. You know, we talk about how cops support Trump and all that stuff, but you go to any police officer and say, do you support Trump enough to lose your job? Never. I bet 90% of cops would be like, if you instruct me to arrest Trump right now, I'd do it. No questions asked.
I disagree.
Well, in New York, where most police departments are typically in big urban areas that are controlled by liberals, we're not talking about sheriff's departments and deputies. Local police officers have already done all of these things. I mean, look at the police officers who were...
I disagree with the statement that 90% of police officers would just do it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that nobody would do it. I'm just saying because obviously it happened. Yeah. And then he came and, he surrendered himself.
So who shut down the churches in New York?
I don't know.
It was police. Yeah. Police went, who arrested the salon owner in Texas? It was police. Who arrested the cafe owner in Minnesota? It was police. I mean, surprisingly, in Attila's gym, the local officers refused to take action, so they brought in police from the next town over who gleefully went and kicked everybody out and threatened them with arrest, took IDs and all that stuff. This idea that cops cannot be communists is so silly. In Seattle, when a guy was attacked by Antifa, and it's all on video.
I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying 90%. I'm just disagreeing with the percentage. That's all.
Sure. I think the overwhelming majority of police officers would protect their job before they defended Donald Trump. This is true of most people. Yeah. In Seattle, a guy was attacked by Antifa and the cops arrested the victim. Why? Well, they're like, we don't want to get into a fight with Antifa. In Wisconsin, when Black Lives Matter came to a guy's house, a group that had previously burned down a house, and the guy brandished a shotgun, the cops went into his house and arrested him to the cheers of Black Lives Matter, who hate police. Time and time again, we see police officers do this. Proud Boys were being harassed at an event in New York City by Antifa, who surrounded a venue with Gavin McInnes. They were throwing things at people. They were screaming at people. Eventually, Proud Boys were like, okay, screw it, let's go, and charged at Antifa. Mutual combat, we call that. When the police showed up, the Proud Boys, being good little Boy Scouts, said, officer, we will tell you everything you need to know. And the cops arrested them and put them in prison for 4 years. I don't see it. How about, I mean, you can look at January 6th, for instance, when people are begging the cops to do anything. They don't. How about the cops on May 29th? None of these cops came out and stuck out their neck for Donald Trump. I think it's an absurdity to think that any of these guys would do anything that would risk their livelihoods. They're like, look, man, I got to feed my kids. I'm not going to stick my neck out for anybody. I think that's what we see mostly. All right, we'll read some more super chats. All right. What do we have here? Next, the Slayer says, Devil's Advocate. Could someone have tapped into SS comms and misdirected comms between SS and police? Assassination without inside help. If so, it would be a major failure that SSN would never admit to. Improbable, though. Highly improbable, probably unlikely, because hacking into comms doesn't change anything. They could maybe like blast feedback, but then they just change the channels. I don't know how commandeering comms would stop people from talking to each other.
The narrative would say that they got jammed or something.
Yeah, and they have cell phones.
It's a convenient excuse for them, yeah.
Communicate, or they could yell.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that big of a space.
Yeah, that was the shocking part. It wasn't that big of a space.
I can't believe not one person said, "Get Trump off the stage now."
Yeah.
Nobody.
Everyone was looking forward, though, you know?
Powder Peasy says, Secret Service director said simultaneously, the building is outside our perimeter. We had officers in the building, and it was local police's responsibility. Which is it? It can't be all three.
Watching her
Certainly
get confronted at the RNC was legendary.
Yeah, that was great.
That was, those congressmen chasing her down. Like, that was
Tommy
great.
CK says, how did a 10-foot ladder appear and no one noticed?
He walked it right over.
Is that what he did?
Yeah.
Well, there was two ladders. I think
There
one was from the Secret
FBI or
Service,
Secret Service,
and then
yeah.
another one that was smaller from him.
Yeah. He bought it and brought it the day before.
Jess Gibson says, watch your bank statements over the next few days. My husband bought something and was charged 25 times in a row for it. Bank is reversing it, but oof.
Wow. Yikes.
Those things happen. I don't know if
does.
that's, specific to, or would be for, everybody would get.
Happens
get
to me
hit
all
by.
the time, but yesterday was Amazon Prime Day.
Which is a scam.
Yeah, it is.
Amazon Prime Day.
Yeah. It's Prime Week now.
All right, we'll just grab,
Yeah.
we'll grab one more.
Please give me vacuums.
Jasper Lavoie says, Tim, did you see the videos of the personnel on the water tower? I saw grainy footage with a black splotch on a water tower that I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
so
that's not personnel.
not really I can say much about it. But my friends, it has been a blast. It's been an amazing week here in Milwaukee, so we really do appreciate all of you watching. Smash the like button. 1 like equals 1 fight, fight, fight. Head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member and support our work directly. And we'll be back in West Virginia. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally on X at Timcast. Bricksuit, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, if you want to follow me, I am on X as well, and it's just at brick_suit. Pretty self-explanatory.
Jeremy, you go. I want to throw it to Hannah.
Anyway, you too, man. It's Friday night, you two. Hey, I'm really close to a new follower milestone on Rumble. I want to catch Luke, so you can find me on The Quartering on Rumble. I have a live show every day at 1 Eastern. I would love if you follow me there. Otherwise, I'm on YouTube, obviously, too. And Tim, just as a special side, thanks to you and your team for having me. It's been great. You guys have been very cordial and accommodating, and everyone's been great. So I've really had a lot of fun on the show this week.
Yeah, I'm going to miss you guys. I go back to Miami. I think all of you guys, part of the show here, do an incredible job. I miss being on the show. It's been really fun. So check me out on Twitter at Luke We Are Change. I have a lot of viral posts on there, a lot of commentary, a lot of stuff that I can't say anywhere else. I say on Twitter. You could also support me there and subscribe to my stuff at Luke We Are Change. And Claire.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimla. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. Guys, thank you so much for watching all week. I want to give a special shout out to our road crew, Serge and the boys.
Oh, yeah.
They work incredibly hard, and I'm so grateful for all the support they provide. So, and thanks to you guys, as always, for tuning in. You can follow Scanner's work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow me, HannahClaire.b on Instagram and HannahClaireB on Twitter. Have a good night.
We will see you all over at Timcast. Oh, no, we're not. We're not doing members only. I always say that. We'll see you over the weekend with clips throughout the week, throughout the weekend, and then we're back on Monday. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see y'all then.